So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Went into Harry Potter Universe. This is second part of the series, so let's start the series. As soon as the boys had finished their lunch, Naruto, Kiba and Bill returned to their dormitory. This time Naruto and Bill made sure that their brunette friend left Akamaru in the dormitory this time to grab their bags before heading to their next lesson, Defense Against the Dark Arts. When they arrived at their allocated classroom on the third floor, they found most of their peers already waiting inside the classroom. Tobio and Anthony were sitting at a desk discussing their favorite Quidditch teams, which was an argument between the Holy Head Harpies and the Kenmare Kestrels, while Michelle, Haley and Natsumi chatted happily amongst themselves about anything that came to their minds, leaving Kiyomi and Paige to eagerly practice the levitation charm from their previous lesson. Naruto, Kiba and Bill settled themselves down at two desks. Bill and Naruto sat at one while Kiba settled down at the next desk and turned his chair so that he could talk to his friends. "Where's Professor Orochimaru?" Bill questioned with a frown, retrieving his belongings from his school bag. "He's probably still eating lunch," Kiba shrugged with disinterest. "We still have about 5 minutes before lunch finishes anyway. Wanna play?" The brunette added as he waved a large stack of chocolate frog cards at Bill and Naruto. He dealt the cards equally between the three of them, and a game of exploding snap was in commence, quickly drawing the attention of Paige and Kiyomi, who drew their chairs up to Naruto and Bill's table to watch the game. They joined in later after the boys' first game came to an end. "Well, this looks fun," an oddly soft voice issued from the classroom doorway, making the students jump and stare around at the figure of Professor Orochimaru. "I'm afraid that I'm going to have to ask you to put your cards away and settle down. Don't tell me that he's another Professor Snape," Naruto mumbled as he, Bill, Paige and Kiyomi returned Kiba's cards and moved into pairs at each table. "Good afternoon." Professor Orochimaru gave the class an eerily pleasant smile. "Welcome to Defense Against the Dark Arts. I thought we could start the year with a bit of work on some dark creatures before we tried some defensive spells. If you would all like to turn to page 37 in your copies of The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection, you should find the page titled Gnomes." "Gnomes?" Anthony grumbled to himself. "I wouldn't really consider them to be a dark creature." "Maybe not, but they are an annoyance," Professor Orochimaru simpered. He then began to read aloud from the book. "Gnomes or Gernumbli gardensi live in underground burrows, otherwise known as gnome holes. They like to dig up plant roots and worms." The bell finally rang throughout the school to announce the end of the third period, waking most of Professor Orochimaru's class from their daydreaming in time to jot down some last few notes before the teacher glanced up from his book. "What timing?" Professor Orochimaru grinned. "We've finished our criteria on gnomes." Naruto felt the class give a collective sigh of relief. "Now, for our next lesson, I want you all to study the theory behind the curse of bogies," Professor Orochimaru continued. "We'll have a practical lesson next time." The Gryffindors packed away their books and slumped their bags over their shoulders, leaving the classroom to depart to their final lesson of the day with tired yawns and grumbles. "Why do we have so much homework already?" Kiba moaned as he, Naruto and Bill walked at a slow pace down the corridor. "It's only our first day. And gnomes for defense against the dark arts?" Is he mad? "I know that they're pests, but Anthony's right. I wouldn't say that gnomes are particularly dangerous." Kiba continued his rant as they followed the other Gryffindor first years and descended the grand staircase to the first floor, until they reached their History of Magic classroom. As they had done in their previous lessons, Naruto, Kiba and Bill huddled around a desk together, and retrieved their belongings from their bags for the last time. "Just one more hour and we're free for the evening, you know," Naruto yawned and stretched in his seat. Naruto?" Bill leaned towards the blonde with a concerned expression. "Are you going to be alright in this class? History?" Naruto blinked at the redhead. "Of course." Kiba swallowed guiltily as his eyes fell upon the translucent ghost of Professor Binns. "Naruto." Professor Binns cleared his throat and began to read the names on his register in a bored, monotone voice. "Tobio Fujiwara, sir. Michelle Harris, present. Kiba Inuzuka." "Yes." Naruto's brunette friend raised his hand before throwing another cautious glance at the blonde. "Haley McCormick, present, sir. Anthony Pettiford." "Yes, sir." "Paige Smith." "Here, sir." "Naruto Uzumaki." Professor Binns waited for an answer to the call, but none came. "Naruto Uzumaki?" The ghost called again, glancing up at the classroom. The Gryffindors slowly, one by one, stared around at the blonde who was sat in his chair staring at Professor Binns in horrified silence. Here, Kiba answered the call for Naruto, tearing his gaze away from his friend and raising his hand again on behalf of the blonde. William Weasley. Professor Binns continued the register as though he hasn't noticed that Kiba had answered twice. Sir, Bill replied as he and Kiba tried to gain a reaction from their friend, and Professor Binns began to conduct his lesson, slowly regaining the students' attention. Naruto? Kiba nudged the blonde while throwing a cautious glance towards Professor Binns. Naruto slowly turned his head towards the brunette. Why is our teacher a ghost? The blonde asked in a faint voice. I hate ghosts, you know. It's okay. Bill tried to soothe the blonde. Ghosts are actually quite nice. They won't do anything to hurt you. Professor Binns is dead. Naruto chuckled quietly, more to himself than to Bill and Kiba. But he's teaching our class. Kiba chewed on his lip with worry and raised his voice for Professor Binns to hear. Excuse me, Professor? Professor Binns ignored Kiba's voice and continued to read from the book he was holding in the same droning tone. During the Wildcat Gargoyle strike of 1911, the Wildcats were winning when Professor Kiba called more urgently, but still found that he was unable to arouse the ghost's attention. Kiba rolled his eyes irritably and muttered, I'm getting him out of here. To Bill as he pulled Naruto out of seat, collected their school bags and dragged the blonde out of the classroom without Professor Binns so much as looking up or taking a pause from his notes. Hey Naruto, are you okay? Kiba asked the blonde again as soon they were out of eyeshot of Professor Binns. Couldn't be any better, thanks, the blonde mumbled, despite the fact that he was still very pale. Damn, I didn't think that you were this scared of ghosts, the brunette murmured more to himself, pulling Naruto further away from the classroom. What I said earlier isn't true, you know? Bill's right, ghosts can't hurt you and they're honestly not as scary as I made them out to be earlier, Kiba explained guiltily. They don't scream at night, and they don't come into our dormitory. I only said that stuff as a joke. Kiba frowned at Naruto apologetically. I'm sorry, Naruto. I got carried away, and if I had known that this was how you were going to react, I wouldn't have said anything. The pair walked into Hana and a brunette girl wearing a Hufflepuff uniform on the grand staircase. Whoa! Hana grabbed Kiba's arm and spun him around. Why aren't you in class? Naruto's not feeling so great, Kiba explained briefly, jerking his thumb at the pale-faced blonde behind him. And I could ask you the same question before you go biting my head off. Free period, Hana replied dismissively as she surveyed Naruto. He looks like he's just seen a ghost. What happened to him? Funny you should say that. Kiba shuffled his feet uneasily. It turns out that Naruto isn't overly keen on ghosts. Hana blinked at her little brother, looking somewhat taken aback. A fear of ghosts probably isn't ideal when you're in a school full of them. You're telling me? Kiba ruffled his hair and laughed guiltily. I don't think he took to Professor Binns very well. Poor guy. The Hufflepuff girl gave Naruto a sympathizing look. You should take him to the hospital wing. Maybe Madame Pomfrey can help? Good idea, I am. Hana nodded at her friend. I was going to take him back to our dormitory until he calmed down a bit. Kiba notified the girls with a small shrug. Then maybe we should talk to Professor McGonagall or something. Hana frowned as she contemplated the advantages and disadvantages of both options. Do you know if there's a certain reason behind his fear of ghosts? He never mentioned it until this morning, Kiba informed the older Inuzuka. Did something happen to make him talk about it this morning? I asked, giving Kiba an encouraging smile and a nod. Kiba cast his mind back to that morning when Naruto had stopped on the staircase when they were heading down to breakfast. He looked kinda shaken and said that he saw a ghost this morning, and then me and my friend, Bill, asked him if he was scared of ghosts. He said that he wasn't, but we could tell that he was lying. So Kiba let his sentence fall into incoherent mumbling. What did you do? Hana shot at Kiba, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. I kinda said some stuff, Kiba muttered, staring at his feet. Hana gave an exasperated sigh. Follow me, we'll go back to the common room this way. Hana pivoted on the spot, cursing her younger brother under her breath, and led the way through a tapestry that concealed a passage. Why are we going this way? Kiba asked, following Hana's lead while tugging on Naruto's robes with I am following behind him. I heard Peeves up on the 5th floor earlier, Hana explained. I don't think it's wise to let Blondie near a poltergeist. Besides, you two are first years. Do you know how much trouble you'll be in for sneaking out of class? I am pointed out. Oh yeah, Kiba grimaced. A week of detentions was not what he had wished for on his first day of school. He's going to be alright, isn't he? Well, he's not going to forget it overnight, Hana replied angrily. But he should be fine. You probably made it much worse for him. Make sure you apologize to him, and never do something so stupid again, Hana added as she paused to jab a finger into Kiba's chest reproachfully. I will, Kiba replied quickly, throwing his hands up in surrender. Naruto's first week at Hogwarts passed in a bit of a blur. He had already decided that his least favorite class was History of Magic, not because their Professor Binns was a ghost, not that he felt particularly comfortable with the idea, but he was slowly becoming more accustomed to the translucent figure. But because Professor Binns bored his students to death, every lesson was the same routine. The translucent man would take the register before he stood in front of his class and read from his notes in a droning voice. Naruto, Kiba and Bill decided that their History of Magic classes were best used as lesson to catch up on sleep, complete any homework that they had failed to do, or play games of hangman on a scrap piece of parchment, while they pretended to take notes. Over the course of the week, Naruto had also made a mental list of teachers who he didn't wish to cross on a bad day, which included his Transfiguration teacher and head of house, Professor McGonagall, the potions master, Professor Snape, and another teacher who had silver hair despite his seemingly young age and wore a bandana to conceal the majority of his face, including his right eye. The young teacher didn't teach any classes with Naruto, so the blonde had never officially met the man. But the silver-haired teacher had a knack of appearing when misconduct or general tomfoolery occurred and would often give harsh punishments to the culprits. Even so, Naruto would pass the man in the school's corridors and feel as though he were being watched closely. But every time Naruto glanced in the teacher's direction, the silver-haired man was engrossed in a small orange book. The blonde had to admit to himself, as much as he would rather avoid the silver-haired man, he was curious to know what the man taught, and why he always hid his face. He had even asked Shikamaru, who merely shrugged in response. What do you think he's reading? Naruto asked as he spotted the man in question sitting in a chair in the corner of the library. Maybe we can work out what he teaches. Shikamaru heaved a weary sigh and squinted at the book in the mysterious professor's hand. I think it says, Make out paradise? Never mind, Naruto cringed slightly, picturing the pervy sage, Jiraiya, laughing triumphantly in his mind. Why don't you just go and ask him? Kiba suggested. Because he creeps me out, you know. Naruto eyed the silver-haired man. Then quit worrying about it and get out with your homework, Shikamaru said, hitting Naruto on the back of the head with his copy of A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration. All right, I'm doing it, you know. Naruto turned back to the piece of parchment in front of him with a furrowed brow as he thoughtfully fiddled with his quill. Shikamaru? Shikamaru hummed to tell the blonde that he was listening. Who was Emmerich the Oddball, and when was he alive? Emmerich the Ravenclaw frowned at Naruto. You mean Emmerich the Evil? Yeah, him. Why don't you just look at your class notes? Naruto laughed guiltily as he held up a piece of parchment that was covered in doodles, profanities, and games of naughty and crosses. Well, what about Kiba's notes? Shikamaru asked impatiently. Kiba shuffled awkwardly as he held up another piece of parchment that was in a similar state to Naruto's. Seriously? Shikamaru quirked an eyebrow at the pair. How on earth are you two planning to pass your exams at the end of the year if you're not paying attention in class? Bluff it, Kiba grinned proudly. There's exams? Naruto cocked his head at the Ravenclaw. I'm starting to think that you two are too troublesome for my liking. Shikamaru groaned. Alright. Listen closely because I'm only saying this once, Shikamaru warned the pair. Watching the two Gryffindors poise their quills, Emmerich was a powerful wizard from the early Middle Ages. Shikamaru waited in the library with Naruto and Kiba until they had finished their History of Magic homework, giving the two Gryffindors helpful advice and facts as they worked. There you are. A girl with blonde hair approached the trio. Ino, Shikamaru inclined his head at the girl, turning in his seat so that he could talk to her face to face. The girl wore Slytherin robes and had her school bag slung over one of her shoulders. She had one hand on her hip and in the other she held an envelope. I was talking to Professor Sprout in herbology. When I came out, your owl gave me this. He must have recognized me. Ino held up the envelope for Shikamaru to see. It looks like your dad's handwriting. Thanks, Shikamaru smiled as he stood up to take the letter. He tucked it away in the pocket of his robes. I'll read it later. Have you seen Choji today? Not since lunch. He was stuffing his face as usual. Ino sighed as she rolled her eyes. He said something about the older students making fun of him. He needs to stand up for himself. If I was him, I would have shown those bullies what's what. Ino scowled as she clenched her fists. If I catch anyone bulking Choji, Just don't get yourself in trouble, Shikamaru sighed. It's not worth it. Ino shook her head and relaxed her hands. She gave a dismissive hum. I'd better take you all back to the Oli. I might as well. I have to go to the Quidditch pitch for a flying lesson anyway. I'll see you later, Shikamaru. Ino flashed a small smile at the Ravenclaw as she turned and joined her pink-haired friend, who was waiting outside the library with a large tawny owl perched on her shoulder. Women are scary, Shikamaru muttered to himself as he rejoined Naruto and Kiba, who were staring at their friend suggestively. What's wrong with you two? Are you and Ino an item? Kiba inquired with an air of innocence. What? Shikamaru threw the Gryffindor an incredulous stare. You seem very friendly, you know, Naruto added, with the same interested expression that adorned Kiba's features. As if. Shikamaru scoffed. I told you when we met I grew up with her and Choji. Of course we're close. We were childhood friends. Who was the other girl? Naruto asked curiously. Other girl? Shikamaru raised a questioning eyebrow at Naruto. You know, Ino's friend with the pink hair, the blonde elaborated. I think she was wearing Ravenclaw robes too. You mean Sakura Haruno? Shikamaru gave his friend a puzzled frown. What's she got to do with anything? Is she another childhood friend? Kiba teased the Ravenclaw with a smirk. Shikamaru gave the pair a skeptical glare. Don't you two have a flying lesson to get to? That it, you just changed the subject, Kiba jested as he and Naruto gathered their belongings and rose to their feet. It's all right, Shikamaru, we won't tell anyone about you and Ino. What? Shikamaru's confused expression grew deeper. There isn't anything to tell anyone, she's a childhood friend. The Ravenclaw emphasized on the phrase childhood friend. But his words fell on deaf ears as Kiba and Naruto were already racing out of the library calling their farewells to Shikamaru, and earning themselves a rather murderous glare from Madame Pants the librarian. The two Gryffindors headed to their dormitory at a brisk pace, dropping their bags off and rushing out of the common room again while receiving bewildered stares and glances from the older students. Naruto and Kiba tore through the school's corridors as fast as they could, taking shortcuts that were concealed behind portraits and tapestries to save some time, of which was shown to the boys by Hana and Ayam. The pair finally skidded to a halt beside Bill, clutching at the stitches in their sides and gasping for breath. Still had 3 minutes spare, Kiba mused to himself as he surveyed his watch. How did she get here before us? Naruto panted, spotting the Slytherin-haired girl who had spoken to Shikamaru mere moments ago. Now that is the enthusiasm I like to see in my class. Professor Mato applauded Naruto and Kiba, a perfect example of the springtime of youth. Guy Mato was a rather eccentric man who in Naruto's eyes seemed to believe that he was still in his teenage years. He had ebony hair that was cut in a bowl style and he wore a green spandex suit for flexibility. Whenever Naruto saw or heard this man, he was forcibly reminded of a second-year student, Rock Lee. Everything about Guy and Lee was the same, they even had the same hot-blooded enthusiasm. The blonde had often wondered if they two were related or if Guy had managed to clone himself, but had never brought it upon himself to ask them. Weirdo, Kiba muttered under his breath as he massaged his side, making Naruto and Bill smirked. Now everyone, stand beside a broomstick, Guy instructed as he pointed towards a line of 20 broomsticks. The students obliged obediently and Naruto found himself standing between Bill and Sasuke Uchiha. The Slytherin and the Gryffindors shared a scowl before their attention was drawn back towards their flying instructor. Now, hold your right hand over your broom like so, Guy commanded in a confident tone, standing beside his own broomstick in view of his students and demonstrating, and say, up. The students watched with unimpressed expressions as Guy's broomstick rolled around on the floor. Up. Guy tried again. The broomstick rolled once more. Up. 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 Guy continued to try again and again, but the broomstick continues to stubbornly jolt around the ground. The important thing is that you don't give up. Guy grinned at the class. But on his last word the broomstick jerked off of the ground and hit Guy on the side of his face. The class tried to disguise their giggles and snorts but were unsuccessful. Fortunately, Guy thought that their smiles were of encouragement and admiration, so he praised the students for their support. Now it's your turn, Guy announced as he rubbed the red mark on his face. Naruto watched as his peers placed their hand above their broomsticks and began to chant, up. Some were successful on their first or second attempts, whereas others seemed to struggle and grew cautious, in fear of a similar incident to Guy's. Up, the Slytherin beside Naruto commanded in a cool voice. The broomstick obliged immediately, and Sasuke flashed a smug smirk in Naruto's direction. You're not going to mess this up as well, are you? Like it's that hard. Naruto grumbled at the raven-haired boy. Say that after you've done it, Sasuke sneered. Humph. The blonde thrust his right hand over the broomstick. Up, he ordered in a confident voice. Naruto watched in disappointment as the broom rose an inch off of the floor and fell again. The Slytherin snickered. Nice try, loser. Let's hope that your flying ability is better than your potion-making skills. Naruto growled furiously. Up. The broom sprang into his hand and the blonde flashed Sasuke a wicked grin. Now that you all have your brooms, mount them like this. Guy showed the Gryffindors and the Slytherins how to grip the handle of the broomstick properly, and then demonstrated how to kick off from the ground. Now follow my lead, everyone. As soon as everyone was in the air, Guy started his introduction to flying by showing the students the basics of turning, moving forwards and landing again. I'm surprised you didn't screw up the basics, Sasuke shot at Naruto in a taunting tone. Why? Do you think you're better than me? Naruto spat back. Think? The Slytherin asked with an amused expression. I know I'm better than you. I've been flying since I was 6 years old. Really? Naruto mocked a curious expression. You haven't been flying for that long then, have you? That's probably why your flying isn't so great, you know. What did you say? The ebony-haired narrowed his eyes into a glare. Are you two coming down or what? Kiba's voice drifted up to the pair, but they ignored him. I bet I could fly better than you any day, you know, Naruto challenged Sasuke, removing his hands from the handle of the broomstick to fold them across his chest with a smug grin despite the fact that he didn't feel comfortable without the support of his arms. Sasuke glowered at the blonde Gryffindor. Seeing as you're feeling cocky, how about first one around the pitch wins? Sounds good to me. Naruto regained a comfortable grip his broomstick and the pair shot off around the edge of the Quidditch pitch as fast as their brooms would will them to go. Look and learn, everyone! Guy called out, drawing the class attention towards Naruto and Sasuke. They're embracing the springtime of youth to reach new limits. Bravo! Is this guy serious? Kiba gawked at Guy. He's supposed to be the teacher. Hey, that's Sasuke! Ino pointed at the ebony-haired boy excitedly. And Naruto, Bill groaned. Go Naruto! Anthony shouted, kick that guy's butt. No way, Sasuke's going to wipe the floor with your little friend, Rosalind argued. He's more experienced and way cooler than any of you Gryffindors, Kaido joined in. Like hell he is. Haley scowled, go Naruto. The class divided into cheers for Sasuke and Naruto while Guy, who seemed even more oblivious, continued to applaud the boys for their enthusiasm. Do you really think you can beat me? Sasuke shouted over the howl of the wind in his ears. Yeah, I wouldn't have challenged you otherwise. Naruto leaned as far forwards on his broomstick as he could. He had now overtaken Sasuke by mere inches, so you can stop acting so superior, you know. The pair were fast approaching their invisible finishing line when Naruto's broomstick gave an unsteady jolt. Naruto's broomstick buckled under the strain of their race and began to jerk uncontrollably. Forcing the blonde to reluctantly slow down, Sasuke easily overtook the Gryffindor and finished his lap of the Quidditch pitch. The Slytherins cheered triumphantly as Sasuke descended to the ground. Naruto slowly followed the raven-haired boy, feeling hesitant to push the broomstick more than he had already. Looks like I am the better flyer after all, Sasuke smiled contemptuously. I would have beaten you if it wasn't for this broom, you know. Naruto burst angrily. A broom is only as good as the wizard flying it. That's it. Naruto fumed. I've had enough of you. Likewise. The pair withdrew their wands and pointed them in each other's faces. Expelliarmus! Sasuke called. Abracadabra! Naruto shouted the first thing that came to his mind. The Gryffindor and the Slytherin continued to glare at each other as a puff of smoke issued from the end of both wands. Now really, Guy stepped in between the two boys. A rivalry is health. But this is going a little too far, don't you think? The two boys slowly lowered their wands, but kept constant eye contact with each other as Guy relaxed his position. Good, now time to pack away. Guy called to the other students as he moved away from Sasuke and Naruto. Loser, Sasuke murmured. That's it. Naruto growled, casting his wand aside as Sasuke did the same. I'm going to wipe the floor with ya. The pair collided in a barrage of punches and kicks as they screamed insults and threats at each other. Naruto, stop it! Kiba yelled as he, Bill and Paige Graves the blonde where they could and dragged him away from Sasuke while Kaido, Samantha and Ino tugged the Slytherin away. I told you to stop. Guy lectured. The boys surveyed Sasuke's bleeding, swollen lip and Naruto puffy eye. 10 points from Gryffindor and Slytherin. I'll be telling your heads of houses about this, Guy added, shaking his head disapprovingly. Naruto had been summoned to Professor McGonagall's office later that evening. He walked down the stone corridors by the flame-lit torches, feeling his heart sink lower and a lump rise in his throat with every step he took. He finally stopped in front of her wooden door, took a deep breath and knocked. He was accustomed to getting into trouble, and being told off was almost a daily routine for him. But this woman scared him more than Mrs. Birkenhead. Professor McGonagall opened the wooden door and surveyed the blonde sternly over the top of her spectacles as she beckoned him into her office. She waited until he had sat down in the chair that she had placed in front of her desk before she regained her own seat and examined him closely, making him feel uncomfortable and shuffle in his seat guiltily as he averted his gaze. I have not had many first years sitting in that chair during their second week of term, Professor McGonagall stated. Naruto could hear the disappointment in her voice. In fact, I would be very surprised if I could name more than 4. Naruto opened his mouth to speak but quickly closed it again, unsure of what he should say. We have no tolerance for violence here at Hogwarts, and I should hope that no student from my house would point his wand so readily at his fellow peers, Professor McGonagall lectured the blonde in a sharp tone. But her expression soon softened as she watched the boy in front of her cast his eyes down to his knees. However, I have been told by Professor Guy that you were provoked. Naruto glanced up at the strict witch. I will let you off with a warning, but might I suggest that you learn to control your temper next time? Yes, Professor. Naruto bowed his head. This does not mean that you are to go without punishment, Professor McGonagall added. You are to serve detention with Mr. Uchiha and myself every night for the next week. Yes, Professor. Naruto nodded again, finding that starting an argument with the intimidating woman would be pointless. Good. Professor McGonagall opened a tartan tin and offered it to Naruto, who glanced between Professor McGonagall and the tin apprehensively. Take a biscuit. Sorry? Naruto cocked his head at the woman in confusion. Take a biscuit, the woman repeated, shaking the tin slightly. Naruto did as he was told with a slightly bemused expression. He surveyed the ginger newt in his hand curiously. Is there anything else you would like to discuss, Mr. Uzumaki? And no, Naruto's confusion grew. Well then, I believe we are finished, Professor McGonagall stated, writing on a small piece of parchment, and then handing it to Naruto. This is your detention slip. I will see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, understood? Yes, Professor. Off you go. Professor McGonagall waved the blonde away. He obliged, leaving Professor McGonagall's office as fast as he could, feeling unsure whether he had been told off or not. Naruto and Sasuke leaned against the wall on either side of Professor McGonagall's office door the following evening. Neither of the boys spoke so much as a word to each other, nor did they look at each other while they waited for their detention with Professor McGonagall to begin. At 6 o'clock, Professor McGonagall returned to her office to find Naruto and Sasuke standing in a sulky silence. Good evening, she greeted the pair and received 2 nods in response. Have you both lost your voices? She snapped at the boys. Good evening, Professor, the boys chimed in unison. Better. Professor McGonagall smiled to herself. Follow me, please, she instructed as she set off down the corridor at a brisk pace. The young Gryffindor and Slytherin share a curious glance, before quickly looking away from each other, remembering that they were supposed to be ignoring each other. Professor McGonagall led the 2 students out into the school grounds where they stopped and waited. Professor Hatake has offered to supervise your detention, Professor McGonagall explained to the boys as they waited. He will be overseeing your evenings for the following week. Professor Hatake? Naruto asked, tilting his head to one side. That's right, Professor McGonagall nodded. To my understanding, he has a few jobs lined up for you over the course of the weeks so that I can attend to other matters. A few jobs? Here he is, Professor McGonagall announced as the familiar white-haired teacher with the bandana approached them. I'll leave them in your hands. Thank you, Professor. The man inclined his head respectfully at Professor McGonagall. The witch left the 2 students with the white-haired man and headed back up to the school. You're Professor Hatake? Naruto eyes the man suspiciously. I prefer Kakashi. Professor Hatake seems too formal for my liking. But that doesn't mean you can treat me differently from any of your other teachers, Kakashi informed the pair. You 2 must be Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, right? The boys nodded. Good, we're going to Hagrid's hut, come on. Hagrid's hut? Sasuke quirked an eyebrow as he followed Kakashi. Hagrid, you mean the big guy? Naruto inquired, trailing along behind them. That's the one, Kakashi grinned. He's a good friend of mine, so I offered to use some magic to get rid of the weeds in his pumpkin patch. But then I overheard Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape talking about your detentions in the staff room. I asked them if I could take on your detentions instead. Weeds? Naruto and Sasuke questioned in unison. I hope that you two brought your dragon hide gloves, Kakashi chuckled to himself. The trio walked down the sloping lawns until they reached a small cabin on the edge of the forbidden forest. Naruto and Sasuke share a brief glance as Kakashi thudded his fist against the door 3 times. Just a minute! Hagrid's booming voice issued from inside the cabin. A scratching noise could be heard along with low barks. Hagrid's door opened to reveal a large, black boarhound jumping excitedly and the giant man who Naruto and Sasuke recognized for their first day at Hogwarts. Lo Kakashi, Hagrid greeted the white-haired man with a wide smile. Yo, Kakashi returned the smile as he raised a hand in greeting. I brought some students from the school to help me. I hope you don't mind. Ya two are eager, aren't ya? Hagrid chuckled. Actually, they're serving their detentions with me, Kakashi confessed as he glanced at the boys over his shoulder. I believe it was for fighting in class. The Gryffindor and the Slytherin scowled at the ground in response. That's no good. Hagrid shook his head at the boys. Well, the pumpkin patch is this way. Hagrid led Kakashi, Naruto and Sasuke through a gate into a fenced-off garden, with the large dog bounding happily around them. Naruto felt his jaw drop as his eyes fell upon rows and rows of huge pumpkins. Whoa! Look at the size of them! The blonde ran up to the closest pumpkin and compared it to his own height. This one's nearly at my waist. At least that one is easily amused, Kakashi murmured to himself as he, Sasuke and Hagrid watched Naruto run between each pumpkin, comparing their sizes. You must be a really good gardener, you know. Naruto beamed at Hagrid. I'm glad ya like 'em. Hagrid laughed. They should be big enough for Halloween soon. Halloween? Sasuke cocked his head at the giant. They look ripe now. Surely they won't keep until Halloween. It's possible. Hagrid twiddled with the pink umbrella in his hand nervously, causing Sasuke to eye it suspiciously. A bit of magic can slow their growth until Halloween, Kakashi explained. Then we'll use them for decorations, pasties, pumpkin juice, stuff like that. Kakashi gave a small shrug. Anyway, we're not here to talk. Hagrid, do you have some spare gloves that these two could use, please? Naruto and Sasuke worked with Kakashi and Hagrid until long after the sun had set. Almost all of the weeds had been removed from Hagrid's pumpkin patch along with a few accidental pumpkins when Naruto had stopped paying attention, to which he and Sasuke hid the evidence of under a pile of dead leaves after a whispered argument. Naruto swiped the sweat from his brow and sat on the floor to stare up at the starry sky. His arms were aching from the constant movement, and his feet hurt where he had been standing and walking around the garden for the last few hours. He had long removed his gloves as they were far too big for him as just got in the way of his work. Now his hands were filthy and there was a lot of dirt under his fingernails. I think that this is enough work for one day, don't you? Kakashi announced as he closed his small copy of Make Out Paradise. He had spent more time with his nose buried in that book than he had spent helping Naruto, Sasuke and Hagrid. Naruto shifted his gaze to Sasuke and was pleased to see that the Slytherin was leaned against the fence, and was just as exhausted as he was. They both heaved a sigh at Kakashi's announcement. How about a nice cup o' tea? Hagrid suggested. Just a little thank ya for the hard work. I can't see why not. It should be fine so long as they're with me, Kakashi reasoned thoughtfully. What do you two think? Kakashi asked, looking towards Sasuke and Naruto. Sounds great to me, you know. Naruto grinned excitably. All of the work that he had done made him feel incredibly thirsty after all. Do I really have a choice? Sasuke sighed. I'll get in trouble for being out of my common room after hours if I leave in my own. Finally learning to play by the rules, are we? Kakashi smirked. Come on, you two. He beckoned the pair to follow him inside Hagrid's hut. The boarhound who had retired to the cabin at sunset wagged his tail excitably as Hagrid and his guests entered the hut. Make yourselves at home, Hagrid beamed encouragingly. Naruto and Sasuke peered around the cabin curiously as they settled themselves down at a large wooden table. The hut only had one room. There was a vast bed with a patchwork quilt on it in one corner. Sasuke grimaced slightly as he surveyed the hams and pheasants hanging from the ceiling. There was no sign of a stove nor much of a kitchenette, which made Naruto wonder whether Hagrid came up to the castle for his meals. Kakashi offered to help Hagrid prepare the tea while the two boys continued to stare nervously about themselves. Here you are. Hagrid placed 2 large cups on the table in front of Naruto and Sasuke along with a plate of rock cakes as Kakashi brought the remaining 2 cups of tea to the table for Hagrid and himself. Help yourselves to some cakes. Thanks. Naruto took one of the rock cakes from the plate and bit into it while Sasuke cautiously followed his lead. Kakashi watched with an amused expression as the 2 boys quickly took the rock cakes out of their mouths, unable to bite through the cakes, and Naruto clasped a hand over his mouth in pain while Sasuke stared at his cake with a quizzical expression. Tasty, aren't they? Kakashi asked, drawing Hagrid's attention to Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke had swiftly slipped his rock cake under the table and willingly let the black dog take the cake before Hagrid had looked around. While Naruto pretended to chew after snapping his own rock cake in half and placed one of the halves in the pocket of his robes, Naruto nodded earnestly at Kakashi while he tried to maintain his innocent demeanor. Kakashi, Naruto and Sasuke waved goodbye to Hagrid as they headed back towards the school. Naruto discarded the rock cake that he had stuffed into his pocket earlier. The white-haired man walked both boys back to their respective common rooms with instructions to meet him in the entrance hall at 6 o'clock the following evening. Naruto entered the common room glad to see that Kiba and Bill were still awake and settled down on the hearth rug, letting Akamaru climb into his lap while Kiba finished his homework. You're finally back then? Kiba tooted irritably at Naruto. I'm surprised that Tri let you walk through the corridors after hours. I had to walk back with the teacher, Naruto shrugged, scratching Akamaru behind the ear. Kiba wrinkled his nose. You smell like mud. What have you been doing? Picking weeds out of Hagrid's pumpkin patch. That's not too bad, Bill commented without looking up from his work. I thought that they would have you writing lines or something. That's what I thought, you know, Naruto admitted with a short laugh. Professor Hataki supervised us. If it had been Professor McGonagall, I'm sure that we would have been writing lines instead. Who the hell is Professor Hataki? Kiba asked. That guy with the white hair who's always reading that book. I've heard about him. Bill frowned as he cast through his memory. One of the older students told me that he conveniently offers to do jobs around the school when his students have detention. That's slave labor. Kiba gawked at Bill. It still beats writing lines. Bill gave a small smile. I bet the time flies by when you're working rather than continuously writing the same sentence over and over again. I think I'll take the lines, thanks, Kiba snorted. He then turned to Naruto. There's an owl waiting for you upstairs. An owl? Naruto blinked at Kiba in confusion. You know, big thing with feathers, has wings and can fly, bird of PR. I know what an owl is, you know. Naruto snapped. I was just wondering who it was from. Beats me, Kiba shrugged. Naruto gently placed Akamaru's curled-up form on the hearth rug, trying not to wake the sleeping puppy, and ascended the stairs to the boys' dormitory. He found a barn owl sitting on his pillow. It gave a low hoot when he entered the room. Shoo! Naruto pressed a finger to his lips and gave an uncertain glance towards the 2 sleeping occupants in the dormitory. The blonde heaved a sigh of relief when neither Tobio or Anthony woke up. Naruto silently crept across the room to his bed and untied the envelope fastened to the barn owl's leg. The owl gave another low hoot, making Naruto flinch, and angrily hushed the bird again before the owl took flight out of the open window beside Naruto's bed, which the blonde quickly closed after the owl had departed. Naruto tiptoed across the room again, closing the door behind himself as quietly as possible. Naruto rejoined Bill and Kiba on the hearth rug. Stupid owl, Naruto grumbled to himself as he opened the envelope and pulled out the piece of parchment inside. Who's it from? Bill asked, ignoring his homework to read the letter over Naruto's shoulder. It's from Irika. Naruto smiled to himself. He just wants to know how I'm doing. Have you got a quill I can borrow? I left mine in the dormitory. Naruto and Sasuke's week of detentions with Kakashi flew by. They were given tasks such as cleaning the bedpans in the hospital wing, cleaning out the oli, tending to the greenhouses for Professor Sprout, which Naruto didn't mind as herbology was one of his favorite classes, and reorganizing the library books into alphabetical order and subject. Naruto began to wonder if there was some truth to behind Bill's words. Although the jobs were tiring, and Naruto quickly grew more and more annoyed if he caught Kakashi reading or if Sasuke caught him messing up his task in one way or another, and made a snide comment, the detentions didn't seem to be as long as they were. Kakashi seemed to be quite a fair man. He would allow both boys to leave early if they had completed their tasks early and to a satisfactory standard. This made Naruto, as Sasuke, feel relieved that they were serving their detentions with the silver-haired professor, especially as they were sure that they wouldn't get the same treatment from Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape. With the first month of term finally over, the school began to buzz with excitement as talk about the start of the inter-house Quidditch tournament began to circulate around the school. I don't really understand why everyone is getting so worked up about it, Shikamaru sighed as he, Naruto and Kiba spotted a group of second years whispering excitedly as they passed through the courtyard. It's just a game. Just a Kiba stared incredulously at the Ravenclaw. It's not just a game. Quidditch is a fundamental sport. Shikamaru rolled his eyes while Naruto sniggered behind Kiba's back as their friend launched into a long rant about Quidditch. Alright, I get the point, Shikamaru waved off Kiba's lecture. I just don't understand why everyone is getting so worked up about it now. The first match isn't for another 2 weeks yet. Yeah, we got the Halloween feast first, Naruto pointed out. Do you think of anything other than food? Kiba shook his head at Naruto. I heard that Professor Dumbledore has hired a ghost orchestra for the entertainment. Please, no more ghosts. Naruto felt a shiver run down his spine. What's wrong with him? Shikamaru muttered to Kiba. He doesn't like ghosts. Kiba heaved a sigh. He's getting better with it though. Seriously? Shikamaru cocked his head at Naruto. You've nearly finished your first term of school. You must see ghosts on a daily basis. How are you still scared of them? He had a bit of a run-in with Peeves during one of his detentions. Kiba ruffled his hair guiltily. He's okay around some ghosts, but he's still a bit skittish around others, I have to admit. It is quite funny to watch him hide from the Bloody Baron. Shut up, Kiba. There's nothing funny about it, you know. Naruto growled angrily. Anyway, whose fault is that? Sorry, Kiba mumbled, shifting his gaze to Akamaru, who was running around the courtyard happily. Shikamaru pulled his robes tighter around himself as a gust of wind hit their backs. It's freezing out here. Can we go back inside? He moaned as he checked a small watch on his wrist. It's nearly lunchtime. We might as well head down to the Great Hall. The trio gladly returned to the warmth of the castle. Even though the temperature of the castle's corridors didn't differ much from the temperatures outside, the castle still felt warmer. Hey, isn't that your friend? Kiba nudged Naruto and pointed towards a raven-haired Slytherin. It's unusual to see him without his little group of fans. Over the past month, Sasuke had become something like an idol to many of the girls in Naruto's year group, even some from Gryffindor, and some in their second or third year's students too. It's very common to see Sasuke flocked by these girls between lessons and often found his female peers squabbling over who would sit next to the young Uchiha during classes. An argument usually won by Ino Yamanaka or Sasuke would wait until everyone else had sat down before he claimed a table to himself. Oh yeah, Naruto glanced around in search of the group of girls who were usually always 3 steps away from Sasuke. But the corridor was empty with the exception of Naruto, Shikamaru, Kiba, Sasuke and another person, who Naruto couldn't see very clearly. Who's he talking to? It looks like Professor Orochimaru to me. Shikamaru squinted at the other figure. Maybe he wants to join Sasuke's fan base, Kiba sniggered. They slowed their pace and watched as the teacher finished his conversation with the Slytherin and proceeded to walk down the corridor towards the trio while tucking something away in an inside pocket of his robes. They noticed that Professor Orochimaru flashed them a curious stare as he caught sight of them and strode past the 3 boys. Good afternoon, he had said with a grin. Shouldn't you 3 be heading down for lunch now? Without another word or waiting for a reply, Orochimaru disappeared down the corridor whilst humming to himself cheerfully. Well, that didn't seem suspicious at all, Kiba commented sarcastically as he watched the older man walk away. Hey Sasuke! Naruto ran towards the Slytherin who had started walking in the opposite direction. What do you want, dope? Sasuke begrudgingly pivoted on the spot to face Naruto. What was that about? Naruto asked, ignoring the nickname that Sasuke had given to him during their week of detentions. Did you get into trouble or something? I was handing in an essay anyway. What business is it of yours if I was in any trouble? Sasuke pointed out at Kiba and Shikamaru caught up with Naruto. An essay? Naruto blinked at the Slytherin in confusion. But we haven't had any essays for defense against the dark arts yet, except the one about the bloody gnomes, Kiba mumbled irritably. It was kind of a personal development thing, Sasuke admitted with a small shrug. As I've already said, it's none of your business. Sasuke turned on the spot again and walked away from the blonde. Personal development? Kiba wrinkled his nose at the Slytherins retreating back as he picked Akamaru up off of the ground. I don't trust that guy. It seems too troublesome. Just leave him alone, Shikamaru advised as he, Naruto and Kiba began to walk at a slow pace again. It's not like he's hurting anyone. The Great Hall was decorated with huge jack-o'-lanterns, orange and black streamers and even some live bats. Naruto was sitting with his friends, Kiba and Bill, as well as a second year named Lee at the Gryffindor table. What's with the stage? Kiba asked, eyeing the large performance area at the front of the Great Hall. My friend, Tenten, said that Professor Dumbledore invited the Weird Sisters to come and do a special concert for us, Lee told his younger peers in an excitable voice. Who are the Weird Sisters? Naruto asked curiously. A wizarding band. They're quite popular especially for witches and wizards around our age, Hannah explained as she dropped into the seat beside her little brother. She was wearing a red robe with the number 4 and her surname embroidered on the back and the Gryffindor house crest stitched on the breast, complete with arm guards, knee and shin pads and gloves. Her clothes had large mud patches that had dried. They're a relatively new band and due to their popularity, I doubt that Professor Dumbledore has asked them to perform here. Sorry, she added to Lee. I swear that you don't really have any friends of your own. Kiba grumbled through gritted teeth. He was careful enough to speak so quietly that only Naruto and Bill had heard him. Hannah, how's the Quidditch practice going? Lee asked the older girl. Good, but tiring, Hannah admitted with a small shrug. It's been tough finding a replacement for Reynolds, but I think we'll definitely beat the Slytherins next weekend. What position did Reynolds play? Naruto asked the older Inuzuka. Chaser, the same as me, Hannah replied. He was the Quidditch captain for Gryffindor too. So who's the Quidditch captain now? Bill joined the conversation. I am, Hannah grinned proudly. My friend I am has been giving me a few pointers. You've met her? The older girl added, nodding at Naruto and Kiba. I can't wait to cheer you on. Lee gave Hannah an encouraging thumbs up. The Great Hall quickly became crowded as the WoW school filed into the cast hall and sat at their respective house tables. Naruto glanced over to the Slytherin table where he could see Sasuke sitting beside Ino, who was obviously trying to start up a conversation with the Uchiha. His gaze then flitted towards the Ravenclaw table where he quickly found Shikamaru in deep conversation with the pink-haired Sakura Haruno. Ever since he had seen the girl in the library, Naruto had tried to talk to Sakura but had quickly learned that she was one of the girls who were showing an interest with Sasuke. The Ravenclaw girl often ignored Naruto's presence when Sasuke was nearby and was quick to criticize the blonde when he and Sasuke got into one of their usual arguments in the corridors, usually after some remark about Naruto's efforts in class, particularly potions. None of this made the blonde relent in his efforts to catch the young girl's attention though, and it certainly didn't help his attitude towards the Slytherin. Why is everyone so cheerful? Naruto frowned as he glanced around the Great Hall, noticing that the buzz of the students and even the teachers was much more lively than usual. It's only Halloween, you know. Only Halloween? Kiba stared at Naruto in disbelief. It's a celebration for the wizarding community, Bill offered. That's right. Kiba nodded in agreement. Halloween unites the whole school with entertainment and a great feast. And we can stay up late in our dormitory tonight and find out who's really the most courageous Gryffindor. Well, it's not you, Hannah laughed, ruffling her little brother's hair as she leaned into their conversation. You still hide under your duvet during thunderstorms. Ack. Kiba jumped in his seat, having been fully convinced that his sister was still engrossed in talk of the upcoming Quidditch match with Lee. I do not. Yes you do, I've seen you do it, Hannah chuckled again. That's only because Akamaru gets scared and I need to comfort him. Kiba retorted defensively. That's not what I meant. Bill rolled his eyes and drew the conversation back towards its original topic. It was on Halloween last year that you-know-who met his downfall. You-know-who? Naruto cocked his head at the ginger-haired boy. Who's that? You've never heard of you-know-who? Hannah gawked at Naruto. He's only one of the most infamous dark wizards of our age. Naruto shook his head and stared expectantly at the older girl. He noticed that the atmosphere around the small group had become tense. You-know-who was an extreme supporter of magic supremacy. Hannah lowered her voice to avoid being overheard as she began to explain. He believed that any witch or wizard who were born to non-magical parents or defended the non-magical community were blood traitors. His followers, Death Eaters, attacked Muggle-borns, Muggles and blood traitors. Usually these attacks would result in death. But that doesn't make sense, you know. Naruto replied indignantly, Why attack people just because either they don't have magic or their parents don't have magic? They can't help how they were born. Shoo! Hana, Kiba and Bill hushed the blonde in unison. Sorry, Naruto lowered his voice to a whisper. Trust me, Naruto, I agree with you, Hana sympathized, but you have to understand that it was statements like that that had whole families killed by the Death Eaters. I'm fairly certain that the Ministry haven't arrested all of the Death Eaters yet, so be careful with what you say. Do you think there's a Death Eater at Hogwarts? Naruto asked cautiously, glancing about himself to ensure that he had not attracted unwanted attention with his outbursts. I think the chances are very slim, but you never know. Hana gave a small shrug. You could be sitting in a classroom with one of their kids or something. Hey! Kiba interjected, realization lighting up his face. Didn't Mum say that? Kiba, Hana growled a warning, silencing her younger brother with a glare while earning herself curious stares from Naruto and Bill. So, how did this guy meet his downfall? Naruto queried, trying to break the tension between the siblings. Harry Potter, Hana replied simply. Harry Potter? He was only a year old when you know who murdered his parents and turned his wand on him, Kiba elaborated. When he who must not be named cast the killing curse on Harry Potter, the spell rebounded and killed he who must not be named instead, Bill joined in. Why did the spell rebound? Naruto cocked his head at his friends. Who knows? Hana shrugged. It's a mystery that we'd all like to know. That's why Harry Potter is famous. He is the only known survivor of the killing curse. Many great witches and wizards have been killed using that curse, but then an infant child lives with nothing more than a scar and the most powerful dark wizard disappears without a trace. The small group fell into silence. Each of them were deep in their own thoughts. Anyway, that's enough of the gloomy subject. We should be enjoying ourselves and looking forward to the feast. A grin spread across Hana's face as she clapped her hands together, stirring the three boys back into the present. Professor Dumbledore stood on the stage and waited until the chatter and whispered conversations died down. Good evening, Professor Dumbledore beamed around at his staff and students. I would like to welcome you all to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry's annual Halloween feast. We have a small performance that has been brought to us by the ghosts of Hogwarts, Professor Dumbledore announced, leading a round of polite applause. The wizened headmaster took his leave as a rather large group of translucent figures ascended to the stage, and the lights dimmed slightly. Why did it have to be ghosts? Naruto groaned quietly. He nudged Kiba's ribs irksomely after catching the other boy sniggering to himself. Everyone in the Great Hall watched as the Hogwarts ghosts began to tell of the Hufflepuff House ghosts. The Fat Friar, life and death. They learned that he had become a clergyman in a mendicant religious order, where he began to indulge in his food and drink. He then showed the other ghosts who posed as fellow churchmen a magic trick. He had pulled rabbits out of the church communion cup. The ghosts acted out a scene in which 3 peasants fell gravely ill with the pox and had begged the fat friar for his aid, to which he had gladly obliged. He then poked each peasant with his wand and cured the pox straight away. But this action had made the senior churchman suspicious. We shall execute him and rid this world of the devil's evil, declared the ghost wrapped in chains, who Naruto recognized as the Bloody Baron. Woohoo! A shrill giggling voice made everyone jump in their seats and stare about themselves wildly. Even the ghosts on the stage looked surprised. I've always loved a good execution. The voice sounded as though it was coming from the walls themselves. Is this part of the play? Kiba frowned. If so, the ghosts are really good actors. Oh no! Lee exclaimed as Hana smacked her own forehead with the palm of her hand. Oh no? Naruto blinked at Lee, feeling dread rise into his chest. Peeves, Hana sighed wearily. Peeves? The last? A small man appeared in the air above the Ravenclaw table. He wore a vivid red bow tie, a hat that was covered in bells and green shirt with purple trousers. The man had black hair and orange, slanted eyes. In his arms he carried an assortment of stink pellets, ink bottles, jugs of pumpkin juice and eggs. Looks like he's been and terrorized the house elves again, Hana tooted. Thought you could have a party without Peevesy? The man gave a sniffle and pretended to wipe his nose in his sleeve, then his face split into a wicked grin as he began to flit around the great hall, dropping the eggs on the students. Happy Easter! He cackled loudly. Merry Christmas! He laughed again as he tipped one of the jugs of pumpkin juice over the heads of the prefects and 3 stink pellets at the head boy and head girl, all of whom were trying to subdue the poltergeist. That's lovely hair you have there. Peeves disappeared and reappeared above Sakura Haruno, Shall we dye it black? Peeves laughed maliciously as he tipped 3 bottles of ink over her head. Naruto pushed Sakura out of the way, shoving her so hard that she fell to the floor, and got caught by Peeves' attack in her place. I got whiskers! Peeves cheered triumphantly as he continued to throw ink bottles and eggs at the dodging student. I got whiskers! I got whiskers! 50 points for me. I hit the jackpot. That's enough, Peeves, a voice boomed over the poltergeist chanting. Peeves froze and stared at the ghost that was bound in chains. Mr. Bloody Baron! Peeves exclaimed with an expression of mock shock. I didn't see you there. I trust that you are well? Begone, Peeves, the Bloody Baron ordered furiously. As you wish. Peeves removed his hat, bowed to the ghost and drifted away through a wall, blowing raspberries at the students as he disappeared. In the silence that followed, everyone could hear the poltergeist chanting, I got whiskers. As he departed down the corridors, Naruto glanced around at Sakura to see that Lee had helped her back onto her feet, while the rest of the Great Hall had begun to talk among themselves and clean up the mess that Peeves had left behind. Thank you, Sakura gave Lee a small smile. Hey Sakura, are you okay? Naruto asked the Ravenclaw. Yeah, no thanks to you, knucklehead. Sakura burst angrily. Why did you shove me like that? I could have been seriously hurt. I was just trying to help, you know, Naruto tried to explain, wiping the ink away from his face. You should be more careful, Sakura lectured the blonde before turning her attention towards a group of friends who had come to see if she was okay. Taunts and jeers followed Naruto through the corridors after the Halloween feast. Many of the students had taken to nicknaming the blonde as Whiskers and had even started meowing at him like a cat when they passed him in the corridors. I can't help how I was born, you know. Naruto finally snapped at a bunch of sniggering 5th years. And he has a proper name too, so you can stop calling him Whiskers. Another voice interjected as a hand clamped around Naruto's shoulder, making him jump and glance around at the source of the voice. As Sakura? Naruto blinked at the pink-haired Ravenclaw. I would move on if I were you, unless you're looking for trouble, Sakura threatened the older students as she clenched her fist and gave the 5th years an innocent smile. What's with the girls around here? Naruto mumbled quietly to himself. Remember a similar pose and expression on Ino Yamanaka's face. They're all so scary, you know. The Ravenclaw's threat seemed to have worked. As soon as the words left her mouth, the older students had shuffled into motion while muttering among themselves. Sakura kept her offensive demeanor until they had completely disappeared, leaving herself and Naruto in the corridor on their own. Well, that got rid of them for a little while. Sakura relaxed her position with a sigh and cast a smile at Naruto. I thank you, Naruto gave the girl a questioning stare. Why did you help me? Because they were picking on you and that wasn't fair, Sakura replied simply, picking up the school bag that she had dropped just behind Naruto. But I thought you was angry with me, the Gryffindor frowned at Sakura. Angry? She tilted her head to one side. Why would I be angry? Because I shoved you during the Halloween feast. I could have really hurt you, you even said so yourself, you know, Naruto explained. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that, Sakura confessed as she motioned for Naruto to follow her. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that and I'm sorry. Thank you for moving out of the way of Peeves. There's no need to thank me, Sakura. Naruto smiled to himself, feeling the heat rise to his face. I should be thanking you. You helped me out with those 5th years, you know. Let's just call it even, the Ravenclaw suggested with a small laugh. Just make sure that you don't get caught starting fights by the teachers, Naruto warned the girl. Otherwise you'll be spending a week with Professor Hataki. I did hear about it, Sakura pursed her lips. Did you get into a lot of trouble? Let off with a warning, Naruto sighed, casting his memory back to his 2nd week of term. We got given a lot of weird jobs, you know, Naruto added with a chuckle. The pair fell into an uncomfortable silence. How did you get all of that ink out of your hair so fast? Sakura asked, noticing that Naruto's hair was as usual vibrant yellow. Oh, my friend's sister knows a vanishing spell. She did it me after the Great Hall was tidied and the feast started. Naruto ran one of his hands through his blonde locks. She's been real nice to me and she annoys Kiba, so that's a bonus. How are you settling in? I have Ino. We've been friends since we were children, Sakura confided in the Gryffindor, and I talk to Hinata whenever I see her. Hinata? Naruto frowned. That name sounds familiar. She's a Hufflepuff student. Is she the one with short hair and pale eyes? Naruto asked, picturing a girl who he occasionally worked with during herbology. She seems a bit weird to me. She's not weird, Sakura gave Naruto an incredulous look. "Hinata's really quite sweet when you get to know her." The pair slowed to a stop outside of Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration classroom. "I'll see you later, Naruto," Sakura waved as she joined the throng on Ravenclaw first years in the corridor. "See you around." Naruto grinned at the pink-haired witch and gave Shikamaru a greeting nod as he passed the other boy as he set off to his defense against the dark arts lesson in better spirits than he had felt for a while. Naruto's good mood was shattered when he had managed to land himself in detention with Professor Orochimaru. He had forgotten to complete their assigned homework that was due in for their lesson and had forfeited his evening for his poor memory. Naruto knocked on Professor Orochimaru's classroom door and slowly opened it, peering inside uncertainly. "Professor?" "Ah, Mr. Uzumaki." Professor Orochimaru greeted the Gryffindor with a calculating stare. "Come in and take a seat." Naruto cast his eyes around the room as he crossed the threshold, expecting to see Kakashi, but the silver-haired man was nowhere to be seen. "It's only us, I'm afraid," Professor Orochimaru informed the blonde after catching the surveying stare. Naruto settled himself down at the desk in front of the teacher's desk. A small creature in a glass tank in the corner of the room caught Naruto's eyes. "Professor, what is that?" he asked, pointing at the gray creature. Professor Orochimaru shifted his gaze to see what Naruto had pointed at. "That is an XX classified creature known as an imp." "Is it dangerous?" "Not at all," Professor Orochimaru chuckled. "They can be quite bothersome at times, but they're just as harmless as a gnome. You'll be learning more about them during your next lesson. I had this one brought in so that I could teach my first years the knockback jinx. This is why I wanted to make sure that you had your homework finished before our next lesson. I was going to ask for a fire crab or some pixies, but they can be quite a handful," the teacher explained. "I think I'll let you all get a taste of the spell with this imp before I introduce you to the likes of fire crabs and pixies. Will the knockback jinx hurt it?" Naruto frowned at the sleeping creature. The older man shook his head. "The most you'll be able to do is daze it," he assured the blonde. Naruto gave an understanding nod before returning his attention back to his reason for being in the classroom. "Am I writing lines today?" No. Professor Orochimaru shook his head as he compared two pieces of parchment in his hands before scribbling a notation on one of the parchments. "What good would writing lines do? That would just be wasting both of our time. I would much rather have you doing something productive." "Something productive?" Naruto questioned as he arched one of his eyebrows. "I would like you to complete the homework that you failed to hand in." Professor Orochimaru gave the blonde an eerie smile. "When it is done, I will mark it for you and you may leave. Sound fair?" "I guess," Naruto shrugged, feeling slightly taken aback. He then retrieved some spare parchment from his school bag along with a bottle of ink and his quill. The following hour consisted of nothing but the scratching of Naruto's and Professor Orochimaru's quills against parchments. Every now and then, Naruto would break the silence with a resigned sigh or occasionally thud his head against the wooden table. Professor Orochimaru observed the boy with an expression of interest as Naruto leaned back in his chair to stare at the ceiling. "You are allowed to use your textbook," the older man pointed out, noticing that Naruto was trying to complete his homework through memory alone. Naruto slowly moved his gaze downwards to meet his professor's eyes. "I didn't think about that," he muttered, more to himself. The blonde then dived under the table for his bag to retrieve his copy of The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection. You can find information on the knockback jinx on pages 42, 69 and 133. Professor Orochimaru notified the boy and then watched as Naruto ruffled through the pages of the book, marking each page that the teacher had suggested with a scraped piece of parchment. And he set off to work again, remembering to use the textbook for information this time. Naruto woke up with a jerk and stared about himself wildly for a few moments before he regained his focus of his surroundings. He was still sitting in Professor Orochimaru's classroom, but the room was now dark. He had been slumped over the desk with his cheek pressed against the piece of parchment, which was now smudged with ink. Naruto rubbed his cheek subconsciously to get rid of any ink markings on his face as he continued to gaze around the room. His neck and back ached, to which Naruto had blamed the awkward position that he was sleeping in. The chair that Professor Orochimaru usually occupied was now vacant, and the wax of the candle on the teacher's desk had solidified again. "Professor?" Naruto called out as he quickly rose from his chair. "Professor Orochimaru?" Naruto gave a startled jump as the sound of nails scraping in glass reached his ears. He turned to see that the imp in the glass tank had woken up too and was clawing at the glass in a futile attempt to get out. The blonde heaved a relieved sigh and began to search the classroom, or a source of light. He found some matches in the top drawer of the desk and relit the candle. He found some comfort in the light that the small flame emitted. "Oh, you're awake," Professor Orochimaru spoke from the classroom doorway, startling the blonde again. "Professor!" Naruto whirled around on the spot, almost extinguishing his candle by accident so that he could see the defense against the dark arts teacher. "You scared me, you know." "That wasn't my intention, my apologies." The older man leaned against the doorframe. "You fell asleep during your detention and I didn't want to wake you. I think you've served enough of your detention." Naruto gave the man a puzzled look. "But I haven't finished the assignment," the Gryffindor pointed out with a frown. "You seem tired," Professor Orochimaru reasoned. "I'm sure I can let you off this time. Just make sure you finish the homework before our next lesson." "Right," Naruto nodded, picking up his belongings and stowing them away in his bag. "It's rather late," the ebony-haired professor informed Naruto as he opened the classroom door to let the young boy leave. "Enter the corridor. You'll get in trouble for being out of bed after hours. Let me walk you back to your common room." Naruto, Kiba and Bill eagerly ascended to the stands of the Quidditch pitch in the grounds of Hogwarts. They had decided to leave the school earlier than most of the other students so that they could find a place where they could easily see both ends of the Quidditch pitch. Shikamaru met the three Gryffindors soon after, along with a plump boy who Naruto recognized as Choji from his herbology lessons. "You guys must have got here early," Shikamaru commented with a yawn. "Of course," Kiba replied defensively as he set Akamaru down on the long bench between himself and Naruto. "My sister is playing in this match. And it's against the Slytherins," Bill pointed out to the Ravenclaw. "We're natural rivals. I just can't wait to see a Quidditch match," Naruto enthused with an excited grin. "I've never seen one before, you know." I should have known that you three would say something like that," Shikamaru smiled to himself. "You guys know Choji, right?" "Hey," the Hufflepuff at Shikamaru's side gave the trio a small wave. "Hey Choji," Bill grinned as he spotted the plump boy, while moving down the bench a little to make a space for Shikamaru and Choji. While Naruto and Kiba beamed at the Hufflepuff, the stands filled quickly as the students and even the teachers trudged down the school's lawns to the Quidditch stadium. "Whoa! Even Professor Dumbledore is here, look!" Naruto pointed towards the stand where the teachers were talking amongst themselves. "And Professor McGonagall." Naruto shifted his pointing finger in the direction of the stern-looking witch, who was standing in a deep discussion with Professor Snape. "She seems way too strict for this kind of thing though, you know," the blonde Gryffindor added in an afterthought. "Are you kidding?" Bill gave Naruto a look of disbelief. "She used to play for Gryffindor." "No way." Naruto's eyes flitted between Bill and the witch in question while he tried to picture the woman wearing Hannah's Quidditch robes. "Are you sure you're not thinking of a different McGonagall?" "Pretty sure it's her. I saw her name on a trophy in the school's trophy room." Bill nodded earnestly. "What were you doing in the trophy room?" Shikamaru asked, arching an eyebrow at the redhead curiously. "Polishing the trophies for detention," Kiba grumbled. "That dodgy old caretaker, Filch, caught us in the corridors after hours. We were looking for you, Naruto," Kiba added, nodding at the blonde. "Looking for?" Naruto gave his two fellow Gryffindors a nonplussed stare. "When was this?" "Back at the start of term," Kiba shrugged. "You landed yourself in a week load of detentions, remember? On your first night you didn't come back to the common room until well after the curfew," Bill elaborated. "We got worried that you had run into Peeves or some other ghost, especially after what Kiba had said." Bill threw Kiba a reproachful look while their canine-loving friend shuffled guiltily in his seat. "So we used Akamaru to trace your scent," Kiba added brightly. "And got lost on the 4th floor." Bill rolled his eyes. "You got lost?" Shikamaru gave the pair a bemused look. "Even though you had a dog who can trace scents." "Akamaru was the one who got us lost in the first place," Bill stated with an amused smirk. "It's not his fault." Kiba snorted defensively, petting the white pup that sat beside him. There were so many scents to follow, and he was new to Hogwarts. He was probably feeling a bit overwhelmed. Excuses," Bill muttered to himself. The stadium erupted with cheers and jeers as the red-clad Gryffindors and the green-clad Slytherins marched into the Quidditch pitch with their broomsticks in hand. Hannah and one of the Slytherin players strode to the center of the pitch, where Guy was stood waiting for them with his own broomstick. "Shake hands and mount your brooms," Guy instructed as he flashed a grin at the two team captains. The pair complied as the rest of their teams clambered into their broomsticks. Guy opened the trunk at his feet with a flick of his wand, releasing 2 identical black balls and a very small, golden ball with wings. Guy then picked up a rather large red ball. Let the game begin, Guy announced as he tossed the red ball into the air between the 2 teams. 14 pairs of feet kicked off from the ground as their owners launched themselves into the air. Slytherin immediately takes possession of the quaffle. A voice that Naruto recognized as Kakashi's resonated around the stadium, causing the blonde to cast his eyes around wildly until he found the white-haired professor standing beside Professor McGonagall. Hayashi passes to Jackson. Jackson passes the quaffle to young O. A nice interception from Foster. Gryffindor are now in possession of the quaffle. Naruto flinched as one of the black balls zoomed past Foster's head, only narrowly missing the boy. That was a close one, Kakashi chuckled. Foster dodges. Jackson passes to Inuzuka. Inuzuka to Chapman. She dodges a bludger with a sloth grip roll. The Gryffindors applauded as their chaser caught the quaffle and quickly let herself slide from the broomstick until she was hanging upside down to evade another of the black balls that had been aimed at her by a Slytherin beater. Isn't she worried about falling off or something? Naruto grimaced as he watched the girl regain her balance on the broomstick. Of course not, Kiba laughed. Hannah's probably trained them so much that falling off of a broomstick is the least of their worries. Chapman soaring towards the goalposts, reverse pass to Inuzuka. Oh, did she drop it? Kakashi tilted his head to get a better view of the players. No, she's used a Parskov play to pass the quaffle to Foster. An excellent strategy, if I can say so myself. Foster to Chapman. Chapman back to, nope, intercepted by Young. Slytherin in possession. Young throws the quaffle to Jackson. Back to Young to Jackson to Young to Jackson. The quaffle zigzagged between the 2 Slytherin chasers while the Gryffindors tried to regain the red ball. Another Parskov play from Young to Hayashi, who enters the scoring zone. Hayashi scores. 10 points to Slytherin, Kakashi announced as the students holding up green banners in support for Slytherin cheered and the Gryffindor supporters groaned. Slytherin in possession. Hayashi to Jackson. Jackson avoids a bludger and passes to Young. Never mind, Gryffindor has the quaffle now. Inuzuka throws the quaffle to Foster. A reverse pass to Chapman. She's tearing around the pitch and passes to Foster. A nice Parkins pincer by Hayashi and Young. But I'm still quite sure that is blatching. Kakashi tooted as Hayashi and Young trapped Foster in between themselves while Jackson accelerated towards the middle chaser with the intentions of a collision. Guy blew on his whistle and gave Jackson a lecture about rivalry and comradeship, while many students voiced their disapproval of Jackson's action. I'm pretty sure that he's making up some of these moves on the spot, you know. Naruto frowned at the white-haired man. Taking advantage of the temporary pause in the game. Parskov play? Sloth grip roll? Parkins pincer? They're all real moves, Choji assured the blonde, pulling out a bag of crisps and offering them to his friends. Seriously? Naruto blinked at the Hufflepuff in disbelief. It sounds like he's inventing new techniques to sound smart, you know. Choji's right. Shikamaru smiled as he took some of Choji's crisps. You should have probably read up on the sport before you came to the match. You'd be able to understand it a bit more. The library should have a copy of Quidditch Through the Ages. That's tell you all you need to know. Who needs books? Kiba waved off Shikamaru's suggestion. Just watch and learn. And that's a penalty shot for the Gryffindors. Kakashi's voice drew Naruto's attention back towards the game of Quidditch. The penalty shot is taken by Foster, and that's 10 points to Gryffindor. All players are back in the game with Gryffindor in possession. Inuzuka passes to Chapman, intercepted by the Slytherin team. Young to Jackson. Jackson to Young. Young back to Jackson, who then passes to Hayashi. Nice dodge there. Hayashi approaches the goalposts again. The quaffle was just a stretch too far out of reach for Yamada. 10 points to Slytherin. Making the score 20-10 to the Slytherins. The stands erupted with cheers and jeers again as the players readied their positions again. Slytherin in possession. Young to Hayashi to Jackson. Jackson is hit by a bludger. That looked painful. Kakashi continued his commentary. Gryffindor in possession of the quaffle. Foster to Chapman. A reverse pass to Inuzuka, who just narrowly misses a bludger. Inuzuka evades both Hayashi and Young. It looks like she might score. Go one, Hannah! Kiba yelled, pumping his fist in the air and making Akamaru yelp as he sprung to his feet. She can't hear you, Shikamaru grumbled as he gave the boisterous Gryffindor an irritable glare. So what? Kiba shrugged. I'm still gonna cheer her on, aren't I? Naruto, Bill and Choji watched with bated breaths as Hannah focused her aim and launched the quaffle into the air, leaving Kiba and Shikamaru to finish their petty squabble. Eastman just misses the quaffle by the tips of her fingers. That's 10 points to Gryffindor, Kakashi called out over the deafening roars of the rowdy students. Gryffindor in possession. Chapman to Inuzuka, Inuzuka back to Chapman, who passes to Foster. Foster is hit by a bludger and drops the quaffle. Caught by Inuzuka, who dodges 2 bludgers. Good job. Inuzuka to Chapnoke. Slytherin intercepts. Jackson to Hayashi, Hayashi to Young. Well done on evading Inuzuka. Young reverse passes to Hayashi. Another reverse pass to Jackson, who easily dodges between the Gryffindor chasers. Should have watched that bludger though. Naruto and Choji winced. Bill is behind his hands. Kiba gave a snort of laughter and Shikamaru remained indifferent as one of the black balls collided with Jackson's face. The Slytherin chaser cradled his nose as blood began to seep through his fingers. But he diligently kept his grip on the quaffle with his other hand. He looks like he's really hurt himself, Bill commented through gritted teeth and a pained expression. He's fine, kids said with a dismissive shrug. The game continued, but Kakashi's commentary was absent, to which many students remained oblivious. But those who had noticed the absence of the white-haired man's voice quickly cast their eyes expectantly towards the commentator's podium, where the man in question could be seen and heard giggling with his head buried in a small orange book. Professor Hataki. Professor McGonagall whispered sharply at the man. Kakashi, HM? Kakashi wrenched his gaze from the pages of his book to meet Professor McGonagall's stern glare. He quietly glanced about himself, realizing his mistake. It wasn't a foul. He asked sheepishly. He had expected Guy to interrupt the match to lecture the players about fair play and sportsmanship, and so he had used this time as an excuse to whip out his volume of Make Out Paradise. Oh, for heaven's sake! Professor McGonagall fumed. Can't you last 5 minutes without diving into that book? The witch glared at the small time as though it had personally offended her. My apologies, Kakashi chuckled nervously, putting his book away as an angry Professor McGonagall supervised his every move. Now will you please pay attention? Professor McGonagall asked in an exasperated tone as he rubbed her forehead. Right. Kakashi nodded as he turned his attention back to the Quidditch match, oblivious to the fact that most of the students had heard his exchange with Professor McGonagall, and were now laughing at him. Slytherin have the quaffle. Jackson to Young, who enters the scoring zone and shoots. 10 points to Slytherin. The green and silver-clad students cheered as the Slytherin players raced around the pitch in a victory lap, and the Gryffindors groaned in disappointment. Even Akamaru gave a low growl. Slytherin in possession. Hayashi to Young. Nice tackle. Foster. Foster to Inuzuka. Drop passes to O, intercepted by Hayashi. Hayashi to Jackson. Reverse passes to Young, who evades an oncoming bludger with another sloth grip roll. Young passes to Jackson, but Inuzuka beat him to it. Inuzuka to Chapman. Back to Inuzuka. Back to Chapman, who throws the quaffle to Foster. He shoots. Naruto felt himself and his peers around his tense as the quaffle left Foster's hand and hurtled towards the goalpost. Yakushi saves it, Kakashi announced as more cheers and groans issued from the stands. Damn that four-eyed freak! Kiba glared at the bespectacled Slytherin keeper, who was now holding the quaffle, with a smug smirk. Calm down, Choji shushed the Gryffindor while Naruto tried to silently warn the Hufflepuff behind Kiba's back. It's just a game. Oh no, Naruto moaned, dropping his head into his hands, while Choji and Bill threw the blonde a perplexed look. Only a game? Kiba slowly turned to face Choji. Here he goes again, Shikamaru huffed. Are you mad? Kiba burst, making Naruto and Choji jump while Bill slid a little away from the group and pretended he wasn't with Kiba as other students around them began to stare. Quidditch is an essential sport in the development of members of the wizarding community. Not this talk again, Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Quidditch helps us to increase our agility and reaction speed, Kiba ranted patriotically, both of which are good attributes of a mastered duelist. He sounds like Professor Mato, Naruto muttered disapprovingly. Receiving a nod of agreement from Bill. Shut up, Kiba, the blonde added, nudging his friend in the ribs. A master duelist? Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at Kiba as he surveyed the Gryffindor before he turned his focus back towards the match with a wary sigh. You're too troublesome. If you're interested in becoming a duelist, why don't you just join the dueling club? Choji suggests between a mouthful of crisps. First years aren't allowed, Kiba grunted with an annoyed look on his face, quickly losing his fiery attitude. I can't see why not though. Maybe because you don't know any offensive or defensive spells yet, Shikamaru explained, and you're not allowed to join the Quidditch team yet either, So how is Quidditch supposed to help you at the moment? Everyone bonds over Quidditch, Kiba retorted dismissively. You call this bonding? Shikamaru asked. Motioning towards the match in session, it had become more evident that both the Gryffindor and Slytherin players had become more brutal in their game. There's nothing wrong with a healthy rivalry. He definitely sounds like Professor Mato, Naruto sighed. Look! A girl who was sitting behind Naruto pointed towards the Slytherin seeker, who was in a nosedive towards the ground of the pitch. Points to Slytherin, making the score 50-20 to the Slytherins. Kakashi's commentary reached their ears again. Oh, it looks like Walters has spotted the snitch with so hot on his tail. By this point, everyone's attention, including the other players on the pitch, was now focused on the two seekers. The stands were divided between cheering on Walters and cheering on So. The two seekers pulled out of their dives simultaneously as Tri raced towards the base of the Gryffindor goalposts with their arms outstretched, ready to snatch the golden snitch out of the air. The two players collided with each other and fell off of their broomsticks, tumbling to the ground together. The stadium slowly began to buzz with confused murmurs, and the two opposing teams hovered uncertainly in the air on their broomsticks. Who caught the snitch? Naruto asked, squinting down to the ground at the two tangled seekers. I dunno, Choji frowned. Did they even catch it? Bill inquired, following suit if many students around him and raising to his feet to get a better look. Walters and So finally rose to their feet. So waved the snitch above his head and beamed widely while Walters propped himself up against the goalpost while nursing a rather nasty-looking cut above his left eye. The Gryffindors erupted with cheers while Hannah and the rest of her Quidditch team, who were still airborne, pumped their fists encouragingly. They did it! Kiba roared in triumph as he jumped to his feet, forgetting that Akamaru had been resting on his lap until the pup fell with a loud yelp. Oh, sorry, Akamaru. Akamaru whined in response before he jumped onto Naruto's lap instead. Kakashi Hatake. Professor McGonagall's voice sounded again. Will you put that blasted book away and announce the winning team already? Oh, did the match finish? Kakashi ruffled his hair and smiled at the witch guiltily as Professor McGonagall snatched the book from his hand furiously. Who won? Bill frowned as he prodded the blonde with the end of his wand. Try again. Naruto nodded at the redhead and repeated the incantation, aiming his wand at the severed cushion on the desk in front of him. Reparo. The feathers in the casing of the cushion slowly gathered together in a pile in front of the blonde Gryffindor, but the cushion did not repair as it should have done. I don't get it, Bill furrowed as he pointed his own wand at Naruto's cushion. Reparo. The cushion instantly repaired itself. Try the severing charm, Kiba suggested as he neglected his own cushion to watch Naruto and Bill's efforts. Defindo. Naruto tried, creating a small tear in the middle of the plump cushion. Why can't I do the severing charm either? I could do it last lesson, you know, Naruto groaned as he hit his head onto the table. How the hell do you unlearn a spell? Kiba inquired as he cast his gaze between Naruto and the cushion. Maybe there's something wrong with your wand. Does it feel any different to usual? No, Naruto shook his head slowly. I don't think so anyway. Have you been feeling unwell lately? Bill asked, turning in his seat to face his friends properly. Sometimes, that can affect your magic. Naruto shook his head again. Maybe you're turning into a squib. You can get a job with Filch and his cat, Kiba suggested in a teasing tone, earning himself a punch in the arm from his friends. The brunette rubbed his arm as he grinned playfully at Naruto and Bill. There must be something, Bill mused thoughtfully. You can't just suddenly forget how to cast spells. I haven't forgotten, Naruto snapped defensively. I can't, you know. The blonde let his sentence drop as he grimaced at the cushion. You just need to practice more. Kiba clapped Naruto's shoulder as he gave the blonde a small, encouraging smile. You're not going to cast spells perfectly all the time, so you've got nothing to worry about. Less talking and more practicing, boys. Professor Flitwick called out to the trio from the front of the classroom, causing a few of their peers to glance back curiously. Just have a little more confidence in yourself, Kiba muttered out at the corner of his mouth as he and Bill turned their attention back towards their own cushions. You'll be back to your normal self in no time. Naruto hummed thoughtfully as he stared at his cushion with a worried expression. Despite what Kiba had said, Naruto couldn't help but feel disheartened as his inability to cast spells as well as he had done so before became more evident. He seemed to mess up in all of his lessons, especially those that had required incantations and spells, and soon Naruto found that he had fallen behind in almost all of his classes. Professor Snape had even picked up on Naruto's shoddy wand work during their potions lessons, and much to the delight of the Slytherins has even used it as an excuse to deduct points from the Gryffindors. Naruto had felt more embarrassed when he had been the only student who had failed today's Professor Orochimaru's imp during the Gryffindors' defense against the dark arts lesson. Not to worry, Professor Orochimaru reassured the blonde boy in a chirpy tone that didn't suit the man's appearance at all. Just practice for about half an hour a night. You'll have the spell perfected in no time. He then raised his voice for the rest of the class to hear. That's enough for today. I think we'll try something new next lesson. Perhaps I can get some fire crabs or some pixies to practice on. Then we can conclude our module on the knockback jinx and... Naruto stopped listening to Professor Orochimaru as he closely examined the wand in his hand. Maybe there is something wrong with my wand, Naruto murmured to himself as he checked the instrument for any signs of visible damage. Naruto tried to ignore his troublesome thoughts during his history of magic lesson. Instead, he focused his attention on taking class note, or writing scribble messages and jokes to Kiba and Bill until the bell rang to signal the end of the teaching period. When Naruto quickly shoved his parchment, ink and quill back into his bag and departed muttering something about overdue homework to Kiba and Bill as an excuse to rush off ahead without his friends, Naruto didn't slow his pace down until he reached the library. He had been checking over his shoulder every now and again to make sure that his friends hadn't followed him. The young Gryffindor was relieved to see that there was only a handful of other students in the library. The rest of the school would have probably returned to their common rooms or, for those unlucky few, serving detentions with the professors while they waited dinner. Naruto grabbed a few books off of the closest bookshelf without paying any attention to their titles or authors and settled himself down at a table hidden away in the corner of the library, where he propped one of the books open to conceal himself from the hawk-like librarian before he dived into his school bag for one of his spare quills and his wand. Defendo! Naruto murmured, pointing his wand at the quill after hastily casting his eyes about himself. The quill remained intact. Defendo! Naruto tried again, but he only achieved the same result. Defendo! 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 Naruto gave a frustrated grunt as the quill remained unscathed. Madame Pants coughed over Naruto's shoulder, startling the blonde. He whipped his head around to face the woman with a sheepish grin as he hid his wand up the sleeve of his robes. Drop my quill, Naruto chuckled as he held up the feather. Madame Pants raised a skeptical eyebrow at Naruto but moved away from the young Gryffindor, eyeing him suspiciously while he pretended to study one of the books until she was out of sight. Naruto withdrew his wand again when he was sure that the woman was gone. Defendo! Naruto whispered and was pleased to see a small split in the stem of the quill. This feeling quickly passed when he remembered that he had successfully cast the spell several times during the previous week. Wingardium Leviosa. The blonde tried a different spell, knowing that he was definitely good at this spell, but the quill remained flightless on the wooden table. Wingardium Leviosa. Naruto chanted more urgently. Naruto? Sakura's voice reached Naruto's ears. The Gryffindor peered over the top of the book that he had propped up in front of himself to see the pink-haired Ravenclaw staring at him with a curious expression. You've got a lot of books there. Are you studying for something? She approached his table and picked up the first book on the top of the large pile, A Guide to Advanced Transfiguration. Human Transfiguration, the Theory of Transfiguration. Sakura gave Naruto an incredulous look. Naruto, all of these books are Newt level. Huh? Naruto threw the books a calculating look before he shifted his gaze back toward the pink-haired girl. I guess that I just really like transfiguration, you know, Naruto chuckled lightly. He felt the heat rise to his face. Really? Sakura asked with an intrigued look upon her face as she slid into the chair opposite Naruto. She lowered her voice so that only Naruto could hear her. Are you trying to become an animagus? Naruto nodded with a grin. He didn't know what an animagus was, but he would rather lie than admit that he couldn't cast simple charms to Sakura. That's really impressive, Sakura whispered in awe. I've just got one question to ask you, Naruto stated as his blush deepened with embarrassment. What's that? What's an animagus? What's an dash? Sakura blinked at the blonde Gryffindor in confusion, before her expression quickly changed to realization and once more to annoyance. You're not really studying transfiguration, are you? Naruto gave a small, guilty laugh as he ruffled his hair nervously. No, he confessed with a defeated expression. Then why did you get all of these books out? I wasn't paying attention, you know. And why did you lie to me? The Ravenclaw inquired angrily as she shook her head at the boy. Well, why are you here anyway? Naruto countered, trying to change the subject as he stowed his quill and wand away in his bag. What's it got to do with you? Sakura snapped defensively as her face flushed red, clashing with her pink hair. As Sakura replied, a familiar ebony-haired Slytherin caught Naruto's eye, making the blonde stare around at the table in the parallel corner to where he was sat with Sakura. Sasuke, I should have known, Naruto muttered, casting his gaze between Sakura and the Slytherin. Wait a minute. He glanced back towards Sasuke's table and realization dawned on his face. Are you using me as an excuse to sit here and gawk at that stuck-up ba? Shut up. Sakura swatted the blonde over the head, and then pretended to read one of the Transfiguration books. As Sasuke glanced in their direction, Naruto pulled a face at the ebony-haired boy, making Sasuke turn his attention back to his own work with a snort. He's not looking, Naruto grunted irritably while he watched Sakura peek at Sasuke over the pages of the Theory of Transfiguration. Why's he got so many books? Probably because he's actually studying, Sakura suggested, narrowing her turquoise eyes to glare at Naruto. He comes to the library quite a lot. Sometimes he'll skip meals just to keep studying. Stalker, Naruto sniggered, earning himself another hit from the girl. Ow, I was joking. Anyway, he can't be that far behind on homework, can he? Naruto added, drawing the girl back to their conversation. With the amount of work he does? Sakura gave a short laugh. No way. Have you ever asked him what he's up to? Ino has, the pink-haired girl informed Naruto, but he told her that it was personal research. That excuse again, Naruto murmured to himself, and he cast his watchful gaze towards the Slytherin. He then leaned back in his chair with a sigh as he spotted a few more girls lingering around the library staring at Sasuke with keen interest. I don't get it. Why is he so popular? He's smart, he's good-looking, and he had a natural talent for magic, Sakura replied easily, smiling fondly at Sasuke. He's a stoic, stuck-up bastard, more like, Naruto grumbled to himself. Humph, seems you're not the only one who's learnt Sasuke's routine, you know. Naruto smirked as he spotted Ino Yamanaka and the usual group of spying girls sneaking around the nearby bookshelves to catch a glimpse of Sasuke Uchiha. That sneaky little Sakura glowered at the blonde Slytherin as she rose to her feet, tossing her long hair over her shoulder as she stood up. Naruto had no doubt that she was going to confront the other girl. Naruto quickly decided that he wanted nothing to do with the whispered argument that would ensue between the girls and turned his attention back to his own business. Naruto hitched the strap of his bag more comfortably over his shoulder as he left the library and headed down the Great Hall for dinner, trying to ignore the headache that was given to him after Madame Pants had chewed his ear off for practicing spells in her domain. Not that he had particularly paid the woman much attention, but his snappish tone had somehow penetrated through his ignorant deafness, and he had found himself mocking her words in his mind and snorting irritably. It was just a small scratch on the table, Naruto huffed to himself quietly, and it's fixed now anyway. He had Kakashi to thank for that. The teacher happened to be in the library at the time and had overheard Madame Pants's lecture. After assuring the librarian that he would give Naruto a proper punishment, Kakashi steered the blonde out of the woman's earshot, advised Naruto not to use the library to practice spells in future, and offered his own classroom instead. But this didn't stop him from taking 5 points away from Gryffindor for vandalizing school property. I've gotta admit, the guy seems fair. At least it wasn't another week of detentions, Naruto sighed as he reasoned with himself. Look at her eyes. A voice reverberated from the end of the corridor, stirring Naruto out of his stupor. The voice belonged to a boy, but it wasn't a voice that Naruto was familiar with. Creepy, right? Another boy's voice joined the first. And what's with the weird haircut? Please, just leave me alone. A third voice, this one belonging to a girl, pleaded. She sounded tearful. I'm surprised that you can even see. You haven't got any pupils. The first voice heckled. Naruto rounded the corner of the corridor in time to see a boy pull on a Hufflepuff girl's hair, making the girl drop all of the books that she had clutched to her chest while she attempted to step away from the two boys. Naruto was angered to see an older boy with long brown hair and the same pale eyes as the girl wearing Ravenclaw robes walk past the commotion without intervening, even when one of the boys harshly grabbed the girl's upper arm. Hey! Naruto called out to the boys, feeling more irked that the Ravenclaw still hadn't stopped to help or at least respond to Naruto's call. Instead, he just walked around the corner and continued until he was out of sight and earshot. The blonde curled his hands into fists, and marched up to the two boys who were assaulting the Hufflepuff girl. "Why don't you leave her alone and pick on someone your own size?" Naruto challenged the two boys despite the fact that he barely teacher their chins in height. They must have been in their third year, at least. "Look! Whiskers has come to save you," one of the boys sneered at the girl. "How cute! My name is Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto growled at the boys, dropping his school bag to the floor. "And you better remember that." "All right, Naruto," one of the boys drawled. He took a step closer towards the blonde with a cocky grin, leaving the other to keep hold of the Hufflepuff. "You want a duel?" he asked, whipping his wand out of his sleeve. "If you win, we'll leave your little girlfriend alone." "Fine," Naruto smirked, withdrawing his own wand as the two older boys shared a disbelieving glances and began to snigger. "Expelliarmus!" the boy yelled, pointing his wand at Naruto, forcing the blonde to duck out of the way as a red jet streaked past him, narrowly missing the side of his face. "What the dash?" Naruto dodged again as another red spell rushing in his direction. "Damn it," Naruto clenched his jaw. "I forgot that these guys would know more offensive spells." Naruto dived behind a statue of an one-eyed witch as another spell was shot at him. "This isn't a game of hide and seek," the boy teased as his friend roared with laughter. "I thought you came to help the girl." Naruto peered around the hump of the witch's statue, catching sight of a suit of armor just behind the boy who had a right hold of the Hufflepuff. The blonde then moved his gaze to the stone walls thoughtfully. "I can't get close enough to hit him with all these spells flying about, but if I can make enough noise, maybe I'll get the attention of a teacher," Naruto mused to himself quietly. Remembering that he had just seen Kakashi in the library minutes ago, the Gryffindor carefully aimed his wand at the helmet of the suit of armor. Wingardium Leviosa. The head slowly lifted away from the rest of the armor, as Naruto carefully guided it with his wand towards one of the stone walls with the helmet in mid-flight towards the closest wall. Naruto's spell failed, causing the metal to plummet towards the ground. "Crap! Please not now!" Naruto swore through gritted teeth as the head of the armor fell onto the dueling boy, encasing the boy's head and obscuring his view with the visor. "Get it off! Get it off!" the boy screamed at his friend while he tugged at the helmet. The boy's friend let go of the girl and rushed forwards to help. "I can't. It's stuck." Naruto stepped out from behind the statue and watched the pair struggle with an amused expression, barely believing his own luck. "What's going on here?" Another voice issued from behind Naruto, making the blonde jump and pivot on the spot until he was facing another boy. This boy had white hair that was tied back into a ponytail. He wore Slytherin robes and had round glasses. Pinned to the front of the boy's robes was a gleaming badge with the letters HB. If Naruto had to guess by appearance alone, he would say that this boy was in his 6th or 7th year at Hogwarts. The blonde Gryffindor was sure that he recognized this boy from the Slytherin vs. Gryffindor Quidditch match that had taken place at the beginning of the month if his memory served him right. This boy was the Slytherin keeper that Kiba had called a four-eyed freak. Fighting in the school corridors, the newcomer shook his head and tooted at the younger students disapprovingly. "You two should know better," he added, giving the two boys who had bullied the Hufflepuff a stern glare. "I'm taking 10 points from each of you." "What gives you the authority to do that?" The boy with the helmet stuck on his head burst angrily as he tried to get a glimpse of the white-haired boy through the visor. "I'm the head boy, Kabuto Yakushi," the newcomer replied coolly. "You're going to take points away from your own house?" The other boy protested as he gave Kabuto an incredulous stare and signaled towards his own Slytherin robes. "Yes, I am," Kabuto glowered. "Now, I'd take your friend to the hospital wing to get that helmet removed before I decide to deduct any more points. If I were you," Kabuto threatened, flashing his glasses dangerously. The two bullies didn't need telling twice. They gathered their belongings and rushed through a door that led to the grand staircase, leaving Naruto and the Hufflepuff girl alone with Kabuto Yakushi. "Hinata?" Naruto blinked at the girl when he turned to face her. He recognized her instantly now that he could see her properly. "If you're being bullied by older students, you should really inform a teacher rather than try and take matters into your own hands," Kabuto informed the two first years as he watched Naruto help Hinata gather her books off of the floor. "You would have been in serious trouble if I was one of the professors." Kabuto stooped down, grabbed Naruto's bag off of the floor and handed it to the blonde. "You shouldn't go picking fights with older students either." "And Naruto was trying to help me," Hinata spoke up, fiddling nervously with the books that were now back in her possession. "And Hinata was being picked on. She didn't do anything wrong, you know," Naruto replied defensively. Kabuto gave the pair a calculating stare. Alright, I won't take any points from Hufflepuff, he concluded. But you still shouldn't be fighting, so I'm still taking the 10 points from Gryffindor, he added to Naruto. The blonde gave an understanding nod. Just count this as a warning though, you two should probably move along now, Kabuto advised. Don't worry about the armor, I'll fix it. Naruto and Hinata hurried through the door and onto the grand staircase while Kabuto watched them closely. They were relieved to see that the other two boys were long out of sight as they descended the stairs. Are you okay? Naruto asked, surveying the girl closely. I'm fine. Hinata smiled gratefully at the blonde. Thank you, Naruto. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't have been there. Naruto frowned as his eyes focused on Hinata's slightly ruffled hair where one of the boys had grabbed her bangs. Bastards. Naruto murmured to himself, you shouldn't let people pick on you like that, Hinata. I'll wipe the floor with them if I ever see them bullying you again. Naruto growled to himself. That's a promise, you know. Hinata cast her eyes downwards with an expression mingled with embarrassment and gratitude. I wish I had your confidence, Naruto. Hinata mumbled in an inaudible tone. What are they all gawking at? Kiba wrinkled his nose at the large group of Gryffindor students huddled around the common room notice board. The brunette-haired boy stood up from his position on the hearth rug and craned his neck in an attempt to catch a glimpse of the notice board. It's only the Christmas list, Hannah replied idly as she readjusted the newspaper in her hands to read a small column. A Christmas list? Kiba quirked an eyebrow at his sister. It's just a list of students who want to stay at school for Christmas this year, Hannah elaborated. Professor McGonagall puts the list up every year. I noticed that your name is on the list already, Blondie. The older Inuzuka added as she nodded at Naruto over the top of her newspaper. Naruto, who was sat cross-legged in the armchair finishing his herbology essay for Professor Sprout, stared at Hannah for a fraction of a second, mentally catching up on the conversation, before he quickly dropped his gaze back towards his parchment, while muttering something about having a quiet Christmas in the castle. It looks like there will be loads of people staying at Hogwarts this year, Kiba commented as he jerked a thumb towards the crowd around the notice board that was now slowly dissipating and gave Naruto a sympathetic look. They're just being nosy. Hannah gave a small laugh. Almost none of them will put their names on that list. It's been the same over the past few years. There will be 6, maybe 7 names on that list and most of them will be 7th-year students. Why 7th-year students? Naruto asked curiously. It's their final year at Hogwarts, so most of the 7th years stay for as long as possible. Hannah gave a small shrug. Nostalgia, I expect. So are you staying this year? Naruto asked hopefully. I think the novelty of the castle has worn off for me. Hannah shook her head. I spent Christmas here every year up until last year. Mum thought that I was safer here during the war. What about Kiba? Mum could look after me, Kiba joined in. But sometimes she would leave me with our neighbors while she ran errands for the order. I don't get it. Naruto cocked his head to one side as he gave the siblings a questioning stare. Why would your mum be okay looking after Kiba but not Hannah? She could have looked after both of us easily, Hannah replied. But it would be pointless to let me leave the safety of Hogwarts while the war was still raging. Loads of parents had the same thoughts and doubts, especially after students were kidnapped or killed during the holidays. I think that almost the whole house group stayed at Hogwarts for Christmas during my 3rd year. But the war's over now, so I doubt many students will be staying at Hogwarts this year. What about you, Kiba? Naruto turned his attention towards the younger Inuzuka. Are you staying for Christmas? Not this year, Kiba replied with an apologetic expression on his face. Mum said that we're going away this Christmas. She's always wanted to go to Finland. I'm going to stab a guess and say that she wants to watch the wolves, Kiba added in an undertone. Watch the wolves? Naruto gave his friend a confused stare. Every time we go abroad, Mum takes us to some of the countries with the highest population of wolves, Hannah explained. Last year we went to Belarus. Mum got into a fight with some Muggle bounty hunters. Kiba shuddered. Mum's scary when she's angry. She started yelling at them and challenging them to a fight. I thought they were going to leave the wolves and take Kuramura for their bounty instead. Mum's favorite animals are dogs. The wilder they are, the more she likes them, Hannah elaborated as she spotted Naruto's nonplussed expression. Seeing as dogs are descendants of wolves, she sees wolves as wild dogs, so we usually get to follow and observe wolf packs while we're on holiday. Mum says that it's good for Akamaru to pick up some wolf-like traits, Kiba added brightly. It'll help him learn tracking, marking and hunting techniques. I see, Naruto nodded slowly. straining his imagination to picture the domesticated puppy as a fierce wild beast, but instead he had to stop himself from laughing at the thought of Akamaru baring his teeth and yapping at a wolf 10 times his size. Anyway, what's Bill doing for Christmas? Kiba inquired, pulling Naruto out of his thoughts. He's spending the holidays with his family, Naruto informed the brunette as he began to reread his essay, and Hana turned her attention back towards her newspaper. He said that this year is his little sister's first Christmas, so he wants to spend time with the whole family, you know. Bill has a sister? He has 5 brothers too, Naruto nodded as he scribbled a notation on his parchment. 5 brothers and a sister? Kiba gaped at Naruto disbelievingly. I can barely handle one sister. Siblings are a pain in the... Watch it! Hana growled, swatting her younger brother over the head with her newspaper and a disgruntled expression. Bloody pest, she grunted as she settled down into the sofa more comfortably. With most of the school now vacant of students due to the Christmas holidays, Naruto found that he had the whole common room almost to himself. Hana's prediction had come true, although many had gone home. Some of the 7th-year students had chosen to stay at Hogwarts, yet usually spent their days studying for their newts in the library or daring each other to walk across the frozen Black Lake when they had decided to take a break from their snowball fights. While in the evenings some of the older students would bring snacks back to the common room to roast on the open fire, calling Naruto and anyone else who was nearby to join them. Naruto took advantage of the empty common room to practice his spells, and he was pleased to see that he was definitely improving and catching up to the rest of his peers again. During the first few days of the holidays, Naruto was relieved to see that Rock Lee has also remained at Hogwarts for Christmas, and often stayed by the ebony-haired boy's side until he discovered that this meant that Lee would drag the blonde down to the Quidditch pitch every morning to run 500 laps around the pitch with Guy the flying instructor. Is that even possible? Naruto asked, giving Lee a confounded stare. Wouldn't you have trouble keeping count of all the laps you do? Of course it's possible, Lee nodded earnestly. It's all part of our training. Training? Naruto cocked his head at the older boy as he stuffed his freezing hands in the pockets of his orange and blue jumper. Training for what? Lee! Guy called out from the other side of the pitch. You're early today. I want to work hard to surpass the genius. Niji! Lee declared in a confident voice. I will prove that I too can become a powerful wizard. Wait, what does running laps around the Quidditch pitch have to do with magic? Naruto murmured quietly to himself. You are burning with the passion of youth. Guy grinned at the ebony-haired boy as he clasped a hand around Lee's shoulder encouragingly. You truly are a genius of hard work. You'll surpass Niji in no time. Let's run 750 laps around the pitch on our hands. On your hands? Naruto burst in disbelief, eyeing the snow-covered grass with a shudder. Why not make it 1,000 laps? Lee suggested enthusiastically. He balanced himself on his hands as Guy followed his lead, and Naruto watched the pair in astonishment. You're full of hot blood today, Lee. 1,000 it is. Guy gave Lee a determined smile. Come, Naruto, Lee urged the blonde. It's good exercise. Maybe next time. I promised Professor Flitwick that I would help him decorate some more of the Great Hall today, Naruto lied, backing away from the eccentric pair. I'll see you in the common room later. Naruto pivoted on the spot and walked briskly across the Quidditch pitch before Lee or Guy could suggest another ludicrous idea. He glanced back at the pair over his shoulder to see that Guy and Lee had already started their first lap of the pitch. Naruto trudged back across the snow-covered grounds, dodging a stray snowball from a nearby fight between the few remaining Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw students. He was relieved to be back in the warmth of the castle as he stopped in his tracks to warm his cold hands with the flame of a nearby touch that was mounted on the stone walls. The blonde heaved a sigh of boredom and allowed himself a few minutes to decide what he was going to do in Lee's absence. I've still got all of my homework for the holidays to do, or I guess I could practice some more spells. Naruto frowned to himself. Not that I'm in the mood to do it. All of my other friends have gone home. Even Shikamaru, Sasuke and Sakura. Maybe I could go and see Kakashi, he finally decided with a huff as he started to ascend the marble staircase. Naruto! A familiar voice reached the blonde's ears, making Naruto turn as he reached the top of the stairs. Irika? Naruto blinked disbelievingly before a wide grin spread across his face. The blonde ran back down the stairs towards the familiar brunette. Irika. What are you doing here? I asked Professor Dumbledore if I could spend Christmas at Hogwarts. Iruka smiled gently as Naruto skidded to a halt in front of him. Otherwise I would have been spending the holidays on my own anyway, he added with a small shrug as he glanced about the blonde. Where are your friends? They went home for Christmas, Naruto replied glumly. Only a few students stayed. Lee's been keeping me company. But he's busy at the moment. Oh, Iruka frowned at the blonde. Well, how about we spend some time together? Iruka suggested, his comforting smile returning to his features. I have a little something for you. You do? Naruto asked excitedly. I was just passing through Diagon Alley before I opera to Hogsmeade. I was just picking up some books and I saw Tucci, so he asked me to pass this on to you. The older man explained as he carefully withdrew a plastic container from his satchel. Tucci? You mean the old man, right? Naruto peeked inside the container to see steaming ramen inside. An even bigger grin lit up the blonde's face. You and old man Tucci are the best, you know. I thought it would cheer you up, Iruka laughed, pulling out his own container of ramen and 2 pairs of chopsticks to show Naruto. Come on, let's sit together in the Great Hall. Naruto happily told Iruka about his time at Hogwarts since their last correspondence. Everything from the Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin to his detention with Professor Orochimaru as they settled down at the Gryffindor table and are their ramen. You don't remember anything before that? Iruka grimaced at the blonde with a confused expression. You just fell asleep. I remember that I had to finish my homework. But I don't remember feeling tired or anything at the time. Naruto tried to cast his memory back to the detention. 1 minute I was writing while Professor Orochimaru was marking homework, I think. The next minute I was asleep at my desk and it was really dark. Have you told any of the other teachers about this? No, Naruto shook his head. Professor Orochimaru was there, and he didn't seem alarmed or worried about. He said that he didn't want to wake me and then he walked me back to the common room when I woke up so I wouldn't get told off. I thought he was quite nice, you know. It's Kakashi you have to watch out for. Kakashi? Iruka gave the blonde a bewildered stare. I did a load of detentions with him at the beginning of the school year, remember? I had to do stuff like clean the Oli and tend to Hagrid's pumpkin patch. Naruto snorted. My friend, Bill, told me about his little trick. What trick? He picks up jobs around the school and then makes his students in detention do them, you know. If he hasn't given out any detentions, he'll offer to take detentions for other teachers. At least it's better than writing lines, Iruka pointed out. Slave labor, Naruto grumbled. If you can't handle the punishment, don't break the rules, knucklehead. Iruka lectured Naruto but ruffled the boy's hair affectionately all the same. How are your classes going? Lousy, Naruto heaved a heavy sigh. I think the potions master hates me. I'm struggling to cast spells so I'm falling behind in charms and defense against the dark arts, but I'm practicing whenever I get the chance to. So I'm catching up to the rest of my class again. Naruto added brightly. I'm still trying to turn mice into snuffboxes in Transfiguration, but Bill, Kiba and Paige are struggling too, so I can't be that far behind with that, and History of Magic is boring me to death. Professor Binns just stands there and reads from his notes all lesson. What about astronomy? Herbology as your flying lessons? Iruka asked. He had been counting the classes off on his fingers as Naruto spoke. I guess astronomy is okay. I use guesswork for a lot of it though, and Professor Yuhi seems nice enough. Naruto grinned sheepishly as Iruka. And Professor Sprout says that I'm really good at herbology. Naruto told the set man earnestly. I'm one of the best in my class. I guess that it's because I like plants and gardening so much. Guy said that I'm a natural at flying and I have hot-blooded youth coursing through me or something like that. Naruto frowned quizzically. I don't really get what he means sometimes. Does anyone? Iruka murmured to himself, remembering the energetic man from when they were both students at Hogwarts. It sounds like you're working hard, Naruto. Naruto was woken up on Christmas Day by a tapping noise near the bed that was usually occupied by Tobio Fujiwara. The blonde rolled out of his bed, blinking groggily while stretching and yawning as he crossed the dormitory and opened the window, letting a large gray owl fly past his head to drop a parcel on Bill's bed and perch itself on the top of Naruto's four-poster bed. The owl ruffled the snow from its feathers, spraying Naruto with icy water droplets. Hey! Naruto wiped a few droplets off of his cheeks as he surveyed the owl with disgruntled expression. Wait, you're Bill's owl. Arrow, what are you doing here? Bill went home for the holidays, Naruto stated as he cautiously approached the owl, worried that the bird may ruffle his feathers again. The blonde shifted his gaze from Arrow to the parcel that the owl had dropped on Bill's bed. He shuffled towards the bed and curiously picked the parcel up and examined the unfamiliar handwriting on the envelope. Naruto Uzumaki. For me? Naruto asked aloud. Errol hooted in response before he took flight once more, departing out of the open window while Naruto tore the envelope open and read the message inside. Dear Naruto, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. From the Weasley family. Naruto smiled to himself as he pulled the brown paper off of the parcel to reveal an orange knitted jumper with a large blue N in the center along with a rather large tin of homemade ginger biscuits. He wished that Errol hasn't left so abruptly so that he could write a thank you message to Bill and his family. Instead he decided that he would get dressed and go to the Oli. Naruto placed the tin of biscuits and the knitted jumper on his bed, finally noticing another thin, wrapped parcel. Huh! Naruto picked the second package up and examined it, finding another note attached to it. Naruto Uzumaki, you seemed to take a liking to Quidditch when we last spoke. Enjoy it. When we last spoke? Naruto stared at the note in confusion. He tore the wrapping paper from the package and examined the two books inside. Quidditch Through the Ages and Quidditch Teams of the United Kingdom and Ireland. Naruto read the titles aloud. He turned his gaze back towards the scribbled message, but found no name other than his own, knowing that the handwriting looked familiar, but he couldn't pinpoint where he had seen it before. Quidditch Old Man Tucci? I've never seen his handwriting before. I know I've seen this somewhere. Irika? No, we've spoken about stuff other than Quidditch, and he's here in the castle. He wouldn't have needed to leave a note on the packaging. The blonde slowly shook his head as he tried and failed to think of who the present may be from. He put the books down with his presents from the Weasleys, deciding that he would try again later, and scribbled a message to say thank you and to wish the Weasleys a Merry Christmas too. He then washed and dressed himself before he left the dormitory and headed to the Oli, wishing Lee a Merry Christmas as he passed through the common room. Naruto joined Lee and Lee's Hufflepuff friend, Tenten, a girl who was also in her second year with brown eyes and brunette hair that was tied into two neat buns, as they headed to the Great Hall for Christmas dinner. Due to the fact that most of the school's students and even some of the staff had gone home to their families during the Christmas break, the Great Hall only held one of the usual 4 house tables. Professors Dumbledore, McGonagall, Flitwick, Sprout, Orochimaru and Madame Pomfrey, the school's matron, had already settled themselves down at the table along with a few 6th-year Ravenclaw girls, who were talking animatedly about the gifts that they had reviewed that morning. Wow! Tenten gasped excitedly as they passed through the huge oak doors into the Great Hall. Professor Flitwick sure knows how to decorate. Look at those Christmas trees. She pointed out one of the 12 Christmas trees, which seemed to have live fairies chasing each other through the branches and baubles while they giggled happily. The snow looks real, Naruto commented in an impressed tone as he gazed up at the enchanted ceiling. That's because it is real, Lee chuckled as he led his friends towards the table. The ceiling mirrors the weather outside. Didn't you notice it before? I didn't think it was real storm clouds and stuff, you know, Naruto replied, frowning at the ceiling slightly. Soon after, more students and teachers entered the Great Hall and joined the table, and it wasn't long before Professor Dumbledore raised his goblet of mulled wine in a toast. Merry Christmas! The wizened man beamed brightly at everyone's at around the table. Merry Christmas! The students and teachers chimed together as they raised their own goblets in unison, and the table began to fill with food. Platters full of roast turkey, stuffing, carrots, Yorkshire puddings, roast and mashed potatoes, pigs in blankets, and a lot of other food piled up along the table along with boats of gravy. The occupant of the table split into separate conversations, so that Naruto's ears were filled with a low buzz as he, Lee and Tenten helped themselves to the delicious-looking food. Naruto laughed as Lee grabbed as much food as he could, mainly vegetables, while claiming that he needed to eat healthily for his training. Give it a rest, Lee. Tenten rolled her eyes at the ebony-haired Gryffindor. It's Christmas. Relax for once, will you? But I have to, Lee began. No you don't, Tenten lectured as she put more roast potatoes on Lee's plate. You can have at least one day off. I guess I could train later, Lee reasoned with a small shrug, digging into the food on his golden plate. Or maybe I could train now. Naruto, let's see who can hold a headstand for the longest while we eat. Eh? Naruto started at Lee in astonishment. Don't even think about it, Lee, Tenten sighed warily. And don't drag Naruto into your antics. Tenten frowned as she spotted Lee's crestfallen expression. How about a snowball fight after dinner? You can train while we play? She suggested in an afterthought. That's a great idea, Tenten, Lee perked up with a huge grin. Naruto heard Professor Dumbledore chuckle and glanced around to see that the headmaster had been watching and listening to Lee and Tenten. Professor Dumbledore's eyes met Naruto's and the old man gave Naruto a small wink before he turned his attention to start a conversation with Professor Orochimaru and Madame Pomfrey. Sorry we're late, Kakashi apologized as he and Irika entered the Great Hall. We were tending to an injured owl. Kakashi laughed nervously while Irika let out a sheepish chuckle. Naruto was amused to see Professor McGonagall purse her lips disapprovingly at Kakashi's excuse. Not to worry, Professor Dumbledore smiled. His blue eyes twinkled behind his half-moon spectacles in the light of the flame torches. I do hope that the owl will make a full recovery. Professor Dumbledore rose to his feet and welcomed the two wizards to the table. Thank you, Headmaster. Kakashi grinned while Irika inclined his head at Professor Dumbledore. I'm sure that the owl will be fine, but I assure you that if I will consult Professor Kettleburn if it takes a turn for the worse. Professor Dumbledore nodded knowingly as he regained his seat and continued his conversation with Professor Orochimaru and Madame Pomfrey while Irika occupied a chair opposite Naruto's so that he was sitting beside Tenten and Kakashi settled down into the chair next to Naruto. Tending to an injured owl, Irika shot at Kakashi sarcastically. You're a terrible liar. What else was I supposed to say? He's sitting right there, Kakashi countered in a low voice. I was busy reading my book, the brunette suggested with an amused gleam in his eyes. That's what you're usually doing. You know what Professor McGonagall is like for punctuality. If she thought I was reading my book she'd kill me. I'm sure of it, Irika snorted. You should have heard her after the Quidditch match last month. Kakashi chuckled at the memory. You'd think I was one of the students. Kakashi caught sight of Naruto out of the corner of his eyes, noticing that the blonde had been listening to their discussion with an interested expression. Good afternoon, Naruto. How are you feeling today? Fine, thanks, Naruto replied, feeling taken aback at the abrupt change of subject. That's an interesting necklace, Kakashi commented as he motioned towards the blue crystal around Naruto's neck. Was it a Christmas present? Oh, this? Naruto fiddled with the crystal for a moment before he tucked it under his orange jacket and shirt. He was surprised that he hadn't noticed it earlier. He was usually careful enough to keep it out of sight even at Hogwarts. He guessed that it was an old habit from the orphanage. No, I've had it for as long as I can remember. Can I have a look? Kakashi asked. The white-haired man then watched as Naruto tentatively removed the necklace and placed the blue crystal in the palm of his hand. Kakashi surveyed the necklace in his hand with interest for a few minutes before passing it back to Naruto. It must be very important to you, Kakashi commented as he turned his attention towards the platters of food in front of him. Keep it safe. Guy entered the Great Hall soon after Irika and Kakashi. He decided to join Naruto's group, much to Lee's delight. But Naruto was sure that he saw a flash of panic in Tenten's eyes. As soon as everyone had had their full of food, the golden plates were cleared away until they were spotless before they refilled with Christmas puddings, mince pies, ice creams and cream cakes. I forgot about pudding, Naruto groaned to himself. Now I regret eating all of that turkey. He glanced in Kakashi's direction. What the dash? Something wrong? Kakashi asked as he quirked an eyebrow at the blonde. How are you eating with that bandana on? I take it off, Kakashi replied simply with a shrug. I didn't see you take it off. Naruto stared at the man in amazement, but a questioning frown soon adorned his features. Why do you wear a bandana all the time? I have to keep my face concealed because I'm just too attractive, Kakashi explained. Otherwise everyone gets distracted. Yeah, right. Naruto snorted. Irika's right. You're a terrible liar, you know. He then gave the older wizard a grin with a mischievous gleam in his eyes. I'd give up now if I were you, Naruto. Irika warned the blonde with a laugh as he spotted the look in Naruto's eyes. I've known him for years and I've never seen him without that bandana on. A loud thudding noise made everyone sitting around the table jump and stare about themselves in bewilderment. It's okay, a 7th-year boy reassured everyone. Hagrid's just fallen off of his chair. Naruto, Lee and Tenten glanced around to see that the large man was lying motionless on the floor while one of the Ravenclaw girls poked his arm uncertainly. Too much fire whiskey, I expect, Professor Sprout tooted dismissively. He'll come round soon enough. The students shared looks of unease while the teachers returned to their conversations and began to pull the large Christmas crackers that were placed along the table. Naruto? Irika stirred the blonde's attention. While offering him the other end of his Christmas cracker, Naruto grasped the other end of the card tubing and gave it a sharp tug. He flinched as the cracker let off a sound similar to gunfire, and white mice leaped from the crackers. The Christmas dinner ended with an out-of-tune chorus of Ye Ol' Hippogriff, which Naruto listened to rather than sang, as he wasn't familiar with the lyrics and the 12 days of Christmas. Entertainment was then unintentionally provided by Guy, who decided to challenge Kakashi to one of their legendary fights, which really turned out to be a series of ridiculous tasks that the two men would set each other. After a quick game of rock, paper, scissors, it was decided that Kakashi was picking today's ludicrous challenge. Can't we have at least one day where they act normal? Tenten sighed as she watched the two adults dart about the Great Hall, trying to catch more of the white mice from the Christmas crackers than the other. Lied Guyon. He jumped to his feet while he pumped his fist in the air to encourage his favorite teacher, and soon after everyone else around the table, including the teachers, began to cheer for either Kakashi or Guy, with the exception of Professor Dumbledore, who cheered for both men. Naruto and Lee bade goodbye to Tenten at the entrance hall as they ascended the marble staircase, and Tenten departed through a side chamber with a small wave. The two boys then rushed up the grand staircase to the 7th floor where the Gryffindor common room was located. Tinsel, Naruto and Lee said automatically as they reached portrait of a rather large woman. They were surprised to see that the fat lady, a painted woman who guarded the Gryffindor common room, was empty. What the dash? Naruto furrowed his brow. Where'd she go? I'm Air. A woman's voice called out as a familiar woman wearing a pink dress stumbled into the framed picture with a bottle of wine in one hand and dragging another equally drunk woman into her frame with the other. What time'd you call this? The fat lady shot at Naruto and Lee scornfully. You should have been in bed hours ago. It's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Naruto replied irritably as he checked his watch. Am not stupid, the fat lady lectured the blonde while her friend giggled gleefully and took a sip from her wine glass. Now, do you have the password or not? Tinsel, Lee and Naruto replied in frustration. After taking a swig from the wine bottle and more giggles with the other woman, the fat lady finally let the two boys pass through her portrait into the common room. Why'd she have to go and get drunk? Naruto huffed as he and Lee crossed the common room to the stairs that led to the boys' dormitory. The pair departed for a moment as they entered the respective dormitories to change into dry clothing and grab the biscuits that they had received from the Weasleys earlier in the day before they finally collapsed with exhaustion on the sofa in the common room. Naruto shuffled off of the sofa onto the hearth rug and warmed his numb hands against the crackling fire. After a few moments, Lee too slid off of the comfortable sofa to join Naruto on the rug, sharing the biscuits while talking animatedly about their plans for the following day until they finally fell asleep before the fire. The castle soon returned to the usual hubbub as the students returned to school after the Christmas holidays. After having the whole castle to explore in peace and quiet during the term break, Naruto found that the return of the other students made him feel a little claustrophobic. He was sad to see Iruka leave the day after Boxing Day, and had even asked the older man to visit him when he could. He's really taken a shine to you, Mr. Yumino, Professor Dumbledore chuckled as he ruffled Naruto's hair. The elderly wizard had joined Naruto in the entrance hall to bade goodbye to Iruka and wish him a happy new year. Which reminds me, have you had a change to consider my proposal? It's a big responsibility. Iruka frowned slightly at the headmaster while Naruto gazed between the two men curiously. I'll need some more time to think about it, but I assure you that we will speak about it again soon. Very well, Professor Dumbledore smiled warmly at the brunette. The very best to you until we meet again, Mr. Yumino. And you, sir. Iruka bowed his head at the man before giving Naruto a final smile and heading out of the school's large front doors with his belongings. Naruto felt a sudden sense of loneliness with Iruka's absence but tried to push it to the back of his mind. He was thankful that he had Tenten and Lee to keep him occupied throughout the rest of the holidays. Tenten had taken it upon herself to meet Naruto after lunch almost every day to take him to the Quidditch pitch, where she would pick out 2 of the better broomsticks from the school's cupboard and practice shooting the quaffle through the hoops or defending the goals she decided against getting the bludgers out in fear of them knocking Naruto off of his broomstick. As soon as their classes had started again, all thoughts about the Christmas break and Quidditch practice was pushed out of Naruto's mind. He even found that he didn't see Tenten much either, but would smile in greeting if he passed her in the school's corridors. Kiba had returned from Finland eager to tell Naruto and Bill what he had taught Akamaru during his holiday abroad. He can track sense better now, Kiba grinned proudly, and he's pretty good at marking. Anything is an improvement in comparison to his last attempt at tracking, Bill muttered in an undertone. earning himself a hard punch in the arm. Well, it's true, he added defensively while Naruto sniggered into the aconite plant that he was watering. Shut up, Kiba muttered sulkily. Weasley! Professor Sprout called out to gain the redhead's attention while giving Naruto's small group a stern glare. You're watering you plant too much. The roots are too fragile for a vast amount of water. The soil should be moist, but well drained. Aconite is very hard to grow, so pay attention. Yes, Professor, Bill nodded as he turned his focus back towards the plant rather than his conversation with Naruto and Kiba. Stupid plant, Kiba muttered at the purple-hooded plant as he moved closer to the workbench and his own aconite plant. Inuzuka, where are your gloves? Professor Sprout shot at Kiba. I warned you at the beginning of the lesson that aconite is poisonous. Poisonous? Kiba blinked at the herbology teacher with a shocked expression. Have you touched the plant yet? Professor Sprout asked in a very serious voice. No, Kiba shook his head. Good. Now wash your hands and put your dragon hide gloves on before you start your work. Listen to me next time rather than talk to your friends. 5 points from Gryffindor, Professor Sprout gave Kiba. Naruto and Bill a knowing stare. Foolish boy, she tooted as she moved on to inspect Hinata Hyuga's work. Am I going to get poisoned? Kiba asked his two friends in a panicked tone while he turned his hands over and examined them for any signs of damage. You haven't touched it yet, Naruto reminded Kiba. Just don't touch it until you put your gloves on. But you should probably get to the hospital wing if your arms feel numb or start tingling. Kiba stared at Naruto in horror before rushing off to wash his hands. Is he okay? Choji inquired. He had looked up from his own aconite plant to watch Kiba. He's fine, Naruto reassured the Hufflepuff boy with a small grin. He just needs to be more careful around Wolfsbane, you know. Wolfsbane? Bill and Choji gave Naruto a perplexed look. Aconite is the official name for this plant, Naruto explained as he smiled fondly at the purple flower. But it's also known as Wolfsbane of Monkshood. It can be used in potions, like Wolfsbane potion and the Wide-Eye potion. But the leaves are very poisonous, and it's easily absorbed by our skin. That's why we have to wear our dragon hide gloves. The name Wolfsbane comes from the fact that toxins in the plant were used to kill off unwanted wolves. Very good, Mr. Uzumaki. Professor Sprout praised Naruto as she walked past the blonde and his friends again. She peered over Naruto's shoulder to survey his plant with a pleased expression. The soil is just right, and I've noticed that you've been storing your plant in a rather shaded area of the greenhouse. I read that aconite prefers to grow in damp and partly shaded areas because the conditions are cooler, Naruto confessed sheepishly. But they can grow in the sun too, he added quickly. Well done, Professor Sprout beamed at Naruto. 10 points to Gryffindor. The plump woman chimed happily before she walked away to watch Naruto's peers tend to their plants. How did you know all of that? Bill gawked at Naruto. I read through our herbology book through the Christmas holidays. Naruto removed his gloves to dive under the workbench to retrieve his copy of 1000 magical herbs and fungi from his bag and showed it to Bill and Choji. I had a lot of spare time, so I read the whole book. Wolfsbane isn't mentioned in here much, but I went to the library and found some more books. I'm kinda lucky, I guess. It seems to have come in handy for our lessons, you know. Naruto chuckled as Kiba returned with his dragon hide gloves on this time. Speaking of Christmas, Mum got your letter, Bill told Naruto. She's really pleased that you liked it. She made it herself. I told her that you were staying at Hogwarts instead of going back to the orphanage. You see, Bill explained in an undertone as his ears turned red in embarrassment. She got a bit teary over it, and then she was worried that you wouldn't get any presents for Christmas, so she got her knitting out. Bill's sentence trailed off into mumbled nonsense. After about an hour, Professor Sprout gained the class' attention by tapping an empty plant pot with a hand trowel as the lesson finally drew to an end. I think we can wrap up our section on aconite now, Professor Sprout announced. I want you all to complete an essay on the history, uses, precautions and how to grow and propagate aconite by our next lesson. Your essays should be at least 2 rolls of parchment, she added, giving the class a stern glare as everyone except Naruto and a few Hufflepuffs groaned at the thought of homework.